Narration Prompt 1. Sora Prompt 1. Cersei Lannister in a black velvet gown stands before a hearth in the Red Keep, hands trembling around a golden goblet, while Robert Baratheon sits heavy in a carved chair with a half-empty flagon, torchlight throwing sharp shadows across the stag antler tapestries, the air thick with smoke and wine and unsaid words. The storm had quieted over King's Landing, but the Red Keep still held its breath as if thunder waited in the walls. Cersei listened to the fire pop and spit and told herself it was only a hearth, only sap and resin surrendering to flame, not the world breaking. Robert had been drinking since dusk. He always drank. That was no omen. Yet tonight the wine did not soften him. It sat in him like lead, and his eyes kept sliding back to her, as if he could not decide whether she was a queen or a wound. "Say it," Robert rumbled, voice hoarse from shouting at ghosts only he could see. "You asked for me. You stood there with that look, like you were about to have me sign some petty decree. Say it." Cersei felt the weight of her children in the room with them, though they were asleep in their chambers, safe behind guards who owed their wages to her father and their fear to her name. Joffrey's sharp smile, Myrcella's soft hands in hers, Tommen's warm cheek against her neck. 3 anchors, 3 stones that might drag her to the bottom if she clung too tightly. She had rehearsed a dozen approaches. She had imagined sobbing, anger, flirtation, poison in a cup. She had imagined, for one brief mad heartbeat, telling nothing at all and fleeing into the night with them while the city slept. But there was no road out of this that did not pass through truth. "Robert," she said, and the word sounded wrong in her mouth without a title to guard it. "If I tell you something, you must listen to the end. You must not." Her voice threatened to crack. She swallowed it down like bitter medicine. "You must not touch me until I am finished." He snorted, the sound of a boar in mud. "I've not touched you in years." That was a lie, though not the kind men noticed. She did not answer it. She stepped closer to the fire so the heat could press against her back, could make her feel as if something held her upright. "The children," she began. Robert's gaze sharpened, and for a moment he looked sober. That was what terrified her most. His sobriety, sudden as a knife. "What of them?" "They are not yours." The words dropped between them like a coin into a deep well. For a heartbeat, there was no sound at all, not even the fire. Robert did not blink. His mouth opened slightly, as if he had not understood the language. Cersei forced herself onward before courage could rot into panic. "Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they are not of your seed." His face changed the way the sky did before a storm, color draining, then flooding back. The muscles in his jaw bunched. His hand tightened around the flagon until his knuckles shone white. "You," he said, and the word was a growl. "You whore." "Yes," she whispered, because truth had to be complete or it was only another lie. And worse, it was my brother. Robert lurched up so fast the chair scraped the stone. He towered over her, larger than life, larger than sense. She had seen him angry. She had seen him drunk. She had seen him laughing as men died for sport in the yard. She had never seen him like this, as if something inside him had snapped and now the whole realm would pay for the sound. His fist slammed into the wall beside her head. Dust shivered from the stone. The firelight jumped wildly across his features. His beard bristling, his eyes bloodshot, his brow furrowed in a confusion that looked almost like grief. "Say it again," he said softly. That softness was more dangerous than any roar. "Say it again so I can hear it clear." "They are Jaime's," Cersei said. "They were always Jaime's. I never gave you—" She nearly said love. She nearly laughed. "I never gave you a true heir." Robert's breath hitched. For a moment, he seemed about to strike her, to make the confession disappear with violence. His hand lifted, and she flinched despite herself, the old reflex of a court that had watched kings break queens as if it were their right. But he did not hit her. He staggered back instead, one step, then another, until his knees found the chair and he fell into it like a man struck by an unseen mace. "No," he muttered, staring into the fire as if it might deny her.
No.
That's... His laugh came out cracked, almost childish. That's a jest. Some Lannister jest. It is not, she said. I swear it on. On what? He snapped his head up, eyes blazing. On the 7? You'd swear on anything. Cersei's hands tightened around the goblet until the metal bit her palms. On the children, she said. On their lives. That did it. Something ugly moved across his face. Not only rage but the humiliation of it. The memory of every court whisper. Every sly glance he had ignored because he was king and kings were not meant to be mocked. He looked at her as if she were a stranger who had walked into his hall wearing her skin. How long? He asked, voice low and deadly. All of it, she answered, and felt the floor tilt beneath her. From the beginning. Robert stood again, slower now, as if his body remembered its strength while his mind drowned. He came toward her with measured steps, and she realized with a cold clarity that she had not confessed to a husband. She had confessed to a conqueror. He stopped close enough that she could smell the wine on his breath and the sweat beneath it, the old familiar stink of Robert Baratheon. His hand rose not to strike, but to grip her chin hard, forcing her to meet his eyes. If you lie, he said, I'll tear the truth out of you with my bare hands. I am telling you, Cersei said through clenched teeth, refusing to give him the satisfaction of fear, because if it comes from anyone else, you'll kill them all before you understand what you're doing. His fingers tightened until pain sparked. And why should I not? Why should I not drag the little bastard off his throne by his hair and smash his skull against it? Because he is mine, she thought. Because whatever monster he becomes, I made him. But she did not say that. She chose the only weapon that might wedge itself into Robert's fury. Because you are not only a man, she said. You are the king. For a heartbeat, Robert's eyes flickered, and she saw it. Beneath the anger, beneath the humiliation. A raw wound that had never healed. Lyanna Stark, her name like a prayer and a curse. He had wanted an ideal and been given reality. Now reality had bitten him again. He released her chin with a shove that made her stumble. Get out, he snarled. Cersei did not move. Her heart hammered against her ribs as if it wanted to escape her. I will not, she said. Not until you swear. He seized the flagon and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the hearthstone, wine splattering like blood. Swear, he bellowed. You ask me to swear? After this. Cersei steadied herself with sheer will. Swear you will not kill the children, she said, and hated herself for how her voice finally shook. Swear it, Robert. His face contorted. For a long moment he looked as if he might be sick. Then, in a voice that seemed dragged up from a deep pit inside him, he said, I swear nothing. The words were a blade laid gently on her throat. Outside, somewhere in the keep, a door shut. Footsteps echoed faintly. The world did not end. It only began to change shape. Narration prompt 2. Sora prompt 2. Robert Baratheon strides through a torchlit corridor of the Red Keep with Ser Barristan Selmy at his side. Gold cloak standing rigid against the stone. Robert's hands shaking with barely contained violence. His shadow long and twisted across the walls. The Red Keep was built to impress and to intimidate, to make men feel small beneath its arches and ancient stone. But tonight it seemed to close in on Robert like a tomb. He pushed through corridors as if he could outpace the thought gnawing at his skull. Boots striking hard, the sound sharp enough to wake the dead. Ser Barristan Selmy fell into step behind him without being summoned, as silent as duty. He was old but not frail. In the torchlight his armor gleamed pale and clean, a remnant from a time when kings still pretended at honor. Your Grace, Barristan said softly. Robert did not answer. His hands flexed and unclenched. He could feel the ghost of Cersei's words in his palms, as if he had already strangled her and she had left them stained. They are not yours. He tasted the phrase like ash. Memories rose unbidden. Joffrey as a boy, staring at him with a coldness that had always felt unnatural. Myrcella smiling sweetly, the only one who had ever looked at him as if he mattered. Tommen climbing into his lap with clumsy affection. He had called them his. He had believed because believing was easier than thinking. How many know? Robert demanded suddenly, without slowing. Barristan blinked. Know what, Your Grace? Robert stopped so abruptly that Barristan nearly walked into him. He turned, and for a moment his expression was so wild that even Ser Barristan's famed composure faltered. Nothing, Robert growled. You know nothing. The corridor's air smelled of wax and smoke. Two gold cloaks at a corner stiffened, uncertain whether to look away. Robert's gaze snapped to them, and they froze as if he might crush them for breathing. He forced himself onward. He needed men he could trust. Trust. The word tasted like something he had once had in his mouth and forgotten the shape of. In a small chamber off the main hall, he slammed the door and paced, a caged animal. Barristan remained near the wall, hands behind his back. Tell me, Robert said, voice rough. If a queen commits treason, true treason, what does the law say? Barristan's eyes narrowed. Not in suspicion, but in the careful attention of a knight who heard danger and could not turn away. Treason is death. And her lovers? Death? Barristan said again, and his gaze held steady. If your grace speaks of... Don't. Robert's laugh was ugly. Don't speak her name like it matters. Don't. Barristan hesitated. Your grace, if something has happened, if you have been wronged. Robert almost choked on the word. He had been made a fool in his own hall, in his own bed, beneath banners he had won with blood. The rage that rose in him was so hot he feared it might burn his eyes dry. He grabbed a chair and flung it against the wall. It splintered, wood cracking like bone. He breathed hard, shoulders heaving. Barristan did not move. He had served mad kings and good kings and drunken kings. He had seen worse than broken furniture. But there was a tightening around his mouth, a quiet sorrow, as if he knew what Robert might become next. Robert stopped, staring at the wreckage. The violence had not eased him. It had only revealed how shallow his control was. Send for Lord Varys, Robert said, forcing the words out like stones. And Peter Baelish, and Pycelle. Barristan's brows rose. At this hour? At this hour, Robert snapped. Now, quietly, no trampits, no bloody ceremony, and put men outside the Queen's door. Your men who answer to me. Barristan's voice remained measured. As you command. Robert dragged a hand through his hair, fingers catching on sweat. And send a raven to Dragonstone, he added, the decision hardening in him like ice. To Stannis. Barristan's face flickered, just slightly. May I ask why? Robert's eyes burned. Because if there's one man in this realm who will tell me what the law demands without licking my arse, it's my brother. He swallowed, the motion painful. And because if I do this wrong, Barristan, I'll have blood on my hands that won't wash off. Barristan stepped forward a fraction, and his voice softened. Your grace already has blood on your hands. You put it there for the realm. Do not put it there for anger. Robert looked at him with sudden, exhausted bitterness. Anger is all I have left. Barristan did not answer. He only bowed and turned to leave, his cape whispering behind him like the passing of time. Left alone, Robert stared at the torch flame. For the first time in years, he felt truly awake. It was a terrible feeling. Narration prompt 3. Sora prompt 3. Varys in silk robes and Peter Baelish in fine brocade stand before Robert Baratheon in a private chamber. Grand Maester Pycelle hovering nervously with chains glinting. Ser Barristan Selmy watching like a statue. A heavy table between them littered with wax-sealed letters and spilled wine. Varys arrived as if he had been waiting behind the wall, soft-footed and smiling. His round face shining faintly with perspiration that could have been worry or merely the heat of his haste. Peter Baelish sauntered in behind him, bright-eyed, as if the hour were an invitation rather than a summons. Grand Maester Pycelle came last, panting and clutching his chain, looking both offended and afraid. Robert sat at the head of the table with a tankard untouched before him. He watched them enter without greeting. The room felt too small for his anger. Baratheon stood at his shoulder like a silent oath. "You wake old men for sport now?" Pycelle complained weakly, trying to mask his tremble with indignation. "Your Grace, I..."
"Sit, Robert bocked."
Pycelle sat at once, cheeks flushing. Littlefinger took a seat with practiced ease, crossing one leg over the other. Varys folded himself into a chair as if lowering into a pool, smooth and quiet. Robert leaned forward, hands braced on the table. "I want to know," he said, "how quickly a secret can kill a kingdom." Littlefinger's smile sharpened. "That depends on the secret." Varys's eyes glittered with polite curiosity. "Your Grace speaks in riddles." Robert's mouth twisted.
"Doi."
He stared at them one by one, and felt, with sudden clarity, how little he had ever truly known the men who served him. If the realm discovered the Queen had committed treason that strikes at the heart of succession, what happens? Pycelle swallowed. "Treason is death," Robert finished, voice flat. "Yes, I know that. I didn't call you here to recite law like you're reading from a Septon's book. I want to know the shape of the chaos." Varys clasped his hands. "The realm is delicate," he murmured. "A truth spoken too loudly can cause more harm than the lie that hid it." "Spoken like a man who lives in whispers," Robert spat. Varys's smile did not slip. "Whispers are often kinder than swords." Littlefinger leaned in, eyes bright as candle flame. "If your Grace means to act, the first question is not chaos. It's coin." He tapped the table lightly. "The crown owes House Lannister a great deal. If Lord Tywin believes the Queen threatened, he may call in debts, or refuse to extend further credit. The city will feel it like hunger." Robert's fist clenched. "Let him choke on his gold. And if he chokes," Littlefinger said mildly, "he may thrash. A lion in pain is dangerous." Pycelle's hands fluttered. "Your Grace, surely this is all. Surely her Grace has only..." Robert's stare cut him off. Pycelle's mouth snapped shut. Varys tilted his head. "If I may, your Grace, the realm's stability rests on the belief that the king's heirs are legitimate. If that belief is shaken, you invite rival claims, old grudges, faithful men who suddenly find faith in different banners." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Rival claims." He tasted the words. "You mean my brothers?" Littlefinger's smile widened. "I mean anyone with a drop of blood and a sharp enough sword to insist it matters." Barristan's voice cut through, calm and stern. "If there is treason, it must be addressed, but addressed with care." Robert swung his gaze to Barristan. "Care?" he echoed, as if the word were foreign. Then his eyes snapped back to Varys. "Who would know first? Who would speak? Who would run to Tywin like a lapdog?" Varys spread his hands. "Men run for many reasons. Fear, profit, loyalty, sometimes simply the joy of being first to carry a fire." Littlefinger chuckled softly. "If the truth exists, someone already suspects it. Courts aren't built of stone, your Grace. They're built of tongues." Robert's jaw worked. "Then we keep those tongues in their mouths." He pointed at Varys. "I want your little birds. I want every whisper caught, every raven watched. If anyone speaks of this, if anyone sends word to Casterly Rock, I want to know before the ink dries." Varys bowed his head. "As you wish." Robert turned to Littlefinger. "And you find me coin. If Tywin pulls his gold, I want enough to keep the city watch fed and loyal." Littlefinger's eyes shone. "That is ambitious." Robert's smile was all teeth. "So is treason." Pycelle's voice quavered. "Your Grace, may I ask, what is it you believe the Queen has done?" Robert leaned close enough that Pycelle flinched back. "I don't believe," Robert said softly. "I know." Silence fell. Even Varys seemed to hold still, as if listening for a distant crack of ice. Robert straightened. "You will speak of this to no one," he said. "Not the Queen. Not your lovers. Not your gods. Littlefinger's brows lifted. Even the queen? Robert's eyes burned. Especially not the queen. Baratheon has placed men at her door. She is not to leave her chambers. No visitors. No messages. Pycelle's face went pale. Your Grace, this is extreme. Robert slammed his hand down on the table hard enough to rattle the tankard. Extreme is being made a fool in my own bed, he roared. Extreme is a bastard sitting my throne while lords bow and call him prince. Extreme is the realm swallowing a lie so big it chokes. His voice echoed. Somewhere beyond the chamber, a guard shifted. When Robert spoke again, his voice was lower, steadier, made of iron rather than fire. I will not have the 7 kingdoms fall because my wife couldn't keep her legs closed, he said. And I will not have my brothers tear each other apart for a crown built on rot. I will cut the rot out. Varys's gaze softened with something that might have been pity. Cutting rot can kill the patient. Robert's eyes were cold. Then the patient was dead already. Narration prompt 4. Sora prompt 4. Cersei Lannister sits rigid on a canopied bed with crimson drapes, her hair unbound like a golden fall. 2 armed men at the door in Baratheon colors. A single candle flickering on a table beside a silver hairbrush. Her face hard as marble while the sounds of the keep muffle beyond the thick wood. Cersei counted the heartbeats between footsteps in the corridor. She had done it as a girl when Tywin's men guarded her door, when she had been too young to name the feeling that tightened her throat. Now she was queen, and still men stood outside as if she were a threat to be contained. They had not touched her. That was something. Robert's restraint felt less like mercy and more like a blade held inches from her skin, waiting for the moment his hand slipped. When she had returned from the hearthroom, she had found the guards already there. Barristan's men, not hers. That detail had chilled her more than any threat. Barristan Selmy did not play games. If he guarded a door, it was because a king had ordered it. Her chamber smelled of perfume and wax and the faint lingering scent of Jaime, though he had not been there in days. She sat at her mirror and watched her own reflection as if it belonged to someone else. The queen's face stared back, beautiful, composed, untouchable. Underneath, something frightened and furious writhed. She thought of waking Jaime. She thought of sending a servant running with a message to the White Sword Tower, of whispering into the ear of a page, of bribing a guard with a jewel. But the guards outside were Baratheon men, and Baratheon men loved their king like dogs loved a master who kicked them and fed them in equal measure. A knock came, abrupt and heavy. Cersei's spine stiffened. Who? The king's command, a voice said. No one leaves. No one enters. I am the queen, Cersei snapped. Silence. Then, cautiously, the king's command. The insolence was like a slap. Cersei rose in one smooth motion, silk whispering. She strode to the door, yanked it open. 2 men stood there in mail and yellow cloaks with the stag pinned at their throats. Their hands hovered near their sword hilts, but they did not draw. Their eyes flicked over her and away again, disciplined, afraid. Who placed you here? She demanded. Ser Barristan Selmy, one of them said. Of course. Cersei's mouth tightened. Send him in. The men exchanged a glance. We cannot, Your Grace. Cannot? Cersei echoed, voice low with menace. Or will not. The older guard's jaw clenched. We will not disobey the king. Cersei stared at him, memorizing his face. She would remember him when this turned. She would remember every man who had looked her in the eye and chosen Robert's command over her authority. She closed the door slowly, careful not to show them the tremble in her hands. When she returned to the bed, she sat again, and for a moment the room felt unbearably quiet. She imagined Robert pacing. She imagined him smashing another chair, another goblet, another piece of their lives. She imagined him storming in and dragging her by the hair into the hall to confess before the court. No, Robert was not that direct when his pride was threatened. He would not hand his humiliation to the realm like a banner. He would keep it tight in his fist and crush it privately until it bled. That was the danger. Private decisions made by furious kings were where kingdoms died. She rose again, unable to sit still. Her gaze went to the window to the dark city beyond. King's Landing lay sprawled like a beast, its streets coiled, its lights flickering. Somewhere out there, the faith slept, dreaming of sin. Somewhere out there, men in taverns laughed at the king and did not know how close they were to the end. Her hand went to her belly instinctively, as if the children were still inside her rather than out in the world, vulnerable to men's judgments. A different knock came then, lighter, cautious. A woman's voice. "Your Grace." It was a handmaid, one of the younger ones, frightened and eager to please. Cersei did not open the door. "What is it?" "His Grace has called the small council," the maid whispered through the wood. "At this hour. They say nothing," Cersei snapped. "You will repeat nothing. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Your Grace." The girl's voice shook. Cersei pressed her forehead against the door for a brief moment, eyes shut. She could feel the grain of the wood. She could feel the weight of the keep pressing down on her, stone and history and men. When she opened her eyes again, they were dry. She could not afford tears. Tears were for girls and widows, not queens who had gambled the realm on love and pride and blood. She returned to her mirror and began to braid her hair, slow and deliberate, as if each plait were a chain she forged around her own fear. If Robert meant to move against her, she would not be caught undone. "Jaime," she thought, "where are you?" And beneath that, a quieter thought she hated herself for having. If he is captured, perhaps he can be traded. The idea tasted like betrayal, but Cersei had never been allowed the luxury of purity. Tywin had raised her to understand that love was a weapon and a weakness and, if necessary, a sacrifice. Outside, the keep murmured on. Somewhere, a raven cried in its cage, sensing the storm before it broke. Narration prompt 5. Sora prompt 5. Jaime Lannister in a white cloak enters a dim throne room lit by braziers. Robert Baratheon standing at the foot of the Iron Throne with his hammer in hand. Ser Barristan Selmy and armed men forming a half-circle. The tension between the stag and the lion so tight it feels like a drawn bowstring. Jaime came when summoned because a Kingsguard did not refuse a king, and because refusing would have meant something had already gone too far. He strode into the throne room with the easy arrogance that had always served him like armor. The white cloak flowed behind him, clean and bright against the gloom. His hand rested loosely near his sword, not in threat but in habit, as if steel were an extension of his body. Robert waited below the Iron Throne rather than upon it. That alone was a message. Robert stood like a man in a battlefield rather than a hall, shoulders squared, eyes hard. In his hand was his warhammer. Old, heavy, the weapon that had broken Rhaegar Targaryen's breastplate. The sight of it sent a ripple through Jaime's instincts, a memory of the trident carried in stories and scars. Barristan stood beside Robert. Around them, men in stag colors held spears and swords, their faces tense. Not ceremony, a trap. Jaime's gaze flicked upward, searching for Cersei in the shadows where she might watch. She was not there. The absence was a cold finger sliding down his spine. "You sent for me?" Jaime said, voice casual, as if this were merely an inconvenient duty. Robert's mouth twisted. He said, "I sent for the man who's been fucking my wife." The words slammed into the hall like a fist. For a heartbeat, Jaime saw nothing but Robert's face, red with rage, eyes blazing. He felt the air tighten. Men shifted, weapons lifting slightly. Jaime did not flinch, not outwardly. Inside, something cold settled, a clarity he had not felt in years. "So she told you," Jaime said, and the words came out calm, almost bored. He refused to give Robert the pleasure of shock. Robert's fingers tightened on the hammer haft. "She confessed," Robert spat. "She confessed the truth, and now I'm looking at the truth." Jaime let his smile curl, sharp as a blade. "And what will you do with it, Your Grace?" The title was poison in his mouth. Robert took a step forward, boots scraping stone. "I'll kill you," Robert said simply. "I'll kill you and her and the bastard spawn you made." Men tensed. Barristan's hand lifted slightly, a warning. Jaime's gaze flicked to Barristan, and for a moment he saw the old knight's face in a new light. Not just honor, but calculation. Barristan wanted bloodshed contained. Barristan wanted the king alive. Jaime's hand moved, quick as thought, toward his sword. Steel hissed in the hall as guards drew. Barristan's blade cleared its sheath in a single smooth motion, bright in firelight. Robert raised the hammer. For an instant, Jaime imagined it. Stepping in, slicing Robert's throat before the hammer could fall, fleeing with Cersei and the children into the night. He imagined the city behind them burning as the stag banners fell. He imagined the world where love was not a crime punished by kings. Then he imagined Joffrey, cold eyes, cruel smile, a boy who would become a king like Robert if raised in war and hatred. He imagined Myrcella screaming, Tommen crying. He froze. Robert saw the hesitation and took it as weakness. He lunged, hammer swinging in a brutal arc meant to crush Jaime's skull. Jaime barely slipped aside, the wind of it tugging at his hair. Stone cracked where it struck, chips flying. Jaime's sword came up, not to kill but to parry, the flat of the blade catching the hammer's haft, shuddering under the force. Jaime's arms jolted. The hammer's weight was monstrous. Robert roared and swung again. Jaime retreated, boots sliding on the smooth stone, cloak snapping behind him. Guards surged forward. "Enough!" Barristan's voice cut like steel. He stepped between them with a speed that belied his age, blade held up, his presence a wall of authority. "Your Grace," he said sharply. "This is not." Robert's eyes were wild. "Move," Robert snarled. Barristan did not move. "If you kill him here," Barristan said, voice steady, "you will start a war in this hall that will not end when the blood dries." Robert's nostrils flared. Jaime stood poised, sword raised, breathing controlled. He could kill Barristan, he realized. He could kill a handful of guards. He might even wound Robert, but he would not escape the keep. Not with this many blades. Not with the city outside full of men who would gladly chase a lion for the promise of favor. And even if he escaped, what then? The children would become prizes. Cersei would be hunted. Tywin would burn the realm to retrieve them or avenge them. Jaime had killed a king once to save a city from wildfire. He could not become the spark that lit another. Slowly, Jaime lowered his sword. "I will not fight you," he said to Robert, and felt something bitter in admitting it. "Not here. Not like this." Robert laughed, harsh and triumphant. "You hear that?" he barked at the hall. "The great Jaime Lannister won't fight." Jaime's gaze remained on Robert, cold and flat. "Not for your amusement," he said. Robert's face twisted, and the hammer rose again. Barristan stepped closer, blade still up. "Your Grace," he said, voice low now, urgent. "You wanted him alive. You said it." Robert froze. For a moment, it looked as if he might strike Barristan instead. Then his shoulders sagged slightly, the rage still boiling but held in check by something grim. He turned his head and spat on the floor. "Bind him," Robert ordered. Hands seized Jaime. He did not resist, though every muscle in his body screamed to. Rope bit into his wrists. The white cloak was yanked and twisted, stained with dust. As they dragged him away, Jaime met Barristan's eyes. The old knight's expression was unreadable. Jaime smiled, faintly bitter as gall. "Honor," he murmured. Barristan's eyes flickered. "Duty," he replied. Behind them, Robert stood beneath the Iron Throne holding a hammer that had ended dynasties, and his breathing sounded like an oncoming storm. Narration prompt 6. Sora prompt 6. A black raven with a wax seal tied to its leg flaps from the maester's rookery into a gray night sky above King's Landing. While below, Ser Barristan Selmy speaks quietly with Robert Baratheon in a stone chamber, and Peter Baelish watches from a shadowed archway with a thoughtful smile. Before dawn, the raven left. It beat its wings hard against the cold air, climbing over the city's tangled rooftops, over the black water of the bay, carrying a message whose ink might spill as much blood as any sword. In the rookery, the maester's hands shook as he tied the wax-sealed strip to the bird's leg. He did not ask what it said. He did not want to know. Knowledge was dangerous in a castle built on secrets. In a chamber below, Robert stood with his palms pressed against a table, head bowed as if prayer might save him from himself. Baratheon watched him carefully. Littlefinger lingered at the edge of the room like a cat near spilled cream, eyes half-lidded, listening. "You sent it," Robert said without looking up. Baratheon nodded. "To Dragonstone, to Lord Stannis." Robert's laugh was short and bitter. "He'll come," Robert said. "He'll come with his sour face and his laws and his judgment. He'll tell me what must be done, and he'll look at me like I'm a fool for needing to hear it." Barristan's voice was gentle. "Perhaps you have needed someone to tell you hard truths for many years, Your Grace." Robert's hands clenched. "Hard truths." He lifted his head, eyes bloodshot. "The truth is I wanted a woman who never wanted me. The truth is I took a crown because it was there and pretended it meant something. The truth is..." His voice broke into a snarl. "The truth is I was so busy drinking I didn't notice the bastard wasn't mine." Littlefinger's soft chuckle drifted in. "Many men don't notice what they don't want to see." Robert's gaze snapped toward him. "And what do you want to see, Baelish?" Littlefinger's smile was polite. "Stability," he said smoothly. "A stable realm is good for trade, and trade is good for everyone." "Liar," Robert muttered, but there was less heat in it now. Exhaustion was creeping in heavy as chainmail. Baratheon cleared his throat. "Your Grace, Ser Jaime has been placed in a secure cell," he said. "Under guard." Robert's mouth tightened. "And the Queen?" "Confined," Baratheon replied. "No visitors." Robert stared into the space between them, as if seeing an invisible battlefield. "If Tywin knows," Robert said slowly, "he'll come." "Yes," Baratheon said. Robert's voice hardened. "If Tywin comes, he'll bring fire." Littlefinger's eyes gleamed. "Fire can be managed," he said. "If you control the fuel." Barristan's gaze sharpened. "And how do you propose we cut Lord Tywin's purse?" Littlefinger's smile did not change. "There are always ways," he said lightly. "New loans, new arrangements, new friends." Robert snorted. "The Tyrells," he said, as if spitting out a seed. Littlefinger's eyes danced. "A fertile house," he agreed. Barristan's jaw tightened slightly. "This is not the time to barter marriages." Robert's expression darkened. "Everything is barter," he muttered. "Even my damned crown." He straightened, drawing himself up like the warrior he had once been. "The children," Robert said suddenly, voice rough. Barristan's eyes softened a fraction. "Yes, Your Grace." Robert's throat worked. "What do I do with them?" The question hung heavy. Littlefinger watched with quiet interest. Baratheon answered slowly, choosing each word as if it might become law. "They are innocent of their birth," Baratheon said. "But their existence is dangerous." Robert's hands trembled. "Joffrey is not innocent," he snarled, remembering the boy's cruelty. The way he had once cut open a pregnant cat just to see the kittens. "He's a monster." Baratheon did not argue. "Even monsters begin as children." Robert stared at the table's edge until his knuckles whitened. "If I kill them," he said hoarsely, "I become Ares." Silence. Even Littlefinger did not fill it. Robert's eyes lifted, and there was something in them that looked like fear. Not fear of death, but fear of himself. "I won't," Robert said, voice low. "I won't have their blood on my hands." Littlefinger's brows rose slightly. "Mercy can be useful," he murmured. Robert's gaze cut him. "Don't," Robert warned. "Don't turn this into a game." Littlefinger bowed his head, smiling. "Never, Your Grace." Robert drew a breath, deep and heavy. "Send ravens," he ordered Baratheon. "To Winterfell. To Eddard Stark. Tell him to come at once." Tell him." He hesitated, as if the words tasted sour. "Tell him I need him." Barristan's expression shifted, and for the first time that night Robert saw something like relief in it. "As you command," Barristan said. As Barristan turned to go, Robert's eyes drifted to the doorway where Littlefinger lingered in shadow. "And Baelish," Robert said. Littlefinger stepped forward, all grace. "Yes, your grace." Robert's voice was cold. "If this leaks before I'm ready, if Tywin hears from anyone but me, I'll hang every whisperer in this keep, and I'll start with the man who profits most from chaos." Littlefinger's smile remained, but his eyes sharpened. "Then let us hope," he said softly. "That silence can be bought." Robert watched him go with a hatred that felt oddly clean. Outside, somewhere high above, the raven flew on into the dark. Narration prompt 7. Sora prompt 7. Joffrey Baratheon in a crimson doublet stands in a chamber with Myrcella Baratheon and Tommen Baratheon. His face twisted in rage as a servant trembles before him, while Cersei Lannister watches through a cracked doorway in shadow, her expression a mask of control on the edge of breaking. The first crack appeared not in council chambers or raven scrolls, but in a child's temper. Joffrey woke late, furious that the Queen's servants had not prepared his morning exactly as he wanted. He threw a goblet at a trembling girl and laughed when it shattered, red wine splashing across the stone like spilled blood. Myrcella flinched and stepped back, quiet as a mouse. Tommen stared, wide-eyed, clutching his toy lion as if it might protect him. "Where is Mother?" Joffrey demanded, voice sharp. "Where is she? Tell her I want her. Now." The servant bowed so low her forehead nearly touched the floor. "Your Grace," she whispered, voice shaking. "The Queen, her Grace, has been asked to remain in her chambers." Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "Asked," he repeated. He liked words that meant power. He did not like words that meant someone else had it. "By whom?" he snapped. The servant's lips parted, but no sound came. Fear held her throat like a hand. Joffrey's face reddened. He seized her by the hair and yanked her head back, forcing her to look at him. "By whom?" he hissed, his voice suddenly low and cruel. Myrcella's voice trembled. "Joffrey!" "Silence!" Joffrey snapped, not even glancing at her. Tommen whimpered quietly. Cersei watched from the shadowed crack of her door, heart hammering. The guards had allowed her a maid, but only one and only under watch. They had not allowed her children. That was how she knew Robert was thinking. He was separating them, dividing them like pieces on a board so he could decide which to break. She could not reach Joffrey, not with her hands, not with her voice, not without exposing herself to the guards at the door. But she could see him, could see the monster and the boy tangled together, could see how his rage was fear dressed in silk. "Let her go," Myrcella pleaded, stepping forward. Her small hands reached toward the servant's hair. Joffrey shoved Myrcella hard enough that she stumbled. "Don't touch me," he snarled. Tommen made a sound like a wounded animal and rushed to Myrcella's side. "Stop," Tommen whispered, tears in his eyes. "Please." Joffrey turned on him, smile cold. "Or what?" he said. "Will you cry? Will you tell Mother?" The words hit the air like a stone. Joffrey's gaze flicked toward the doorway, toward Cersei's shadow. For a heartbeat, mother and son saw each other through the crack. Cersei felt her breath catch. She wanted to step out, to gather them, to soothe them with lies and kisses and promises. But she did not move. Moving would mean the guards. Moving would mean Robert's men seeing her need. Joffrey's eyes narrowed, calculating even now. He released the servant with a shove that sent her sprawling. He smoothed his doublet as if nothing had happened. "Tell the king," Joffrey said to the servant, voice suddenly bright with false sweetness, "that I demand to know why my mother is kept from me." The servant scrambled away, half crawling. Myrcella rubbed her arm where she had hit the floor. Tommen clung to her, shaking. Joffrey turned to them with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You'll stop looking at me like that," he said softly. "I'm the prince." Myrcella swallowed hard. Yes, she whispered. Cersei's nails dug into her palm. The crack between the door and its frame seemed suddenly too thin, too fragile, as if her entire world were balanced on splintered wood. When Joffrey left the chamber, striding out like a little king, Cersei retreated back into her own room, forcing her breathing to slow. She pressed her hand to her mouth, not to stifle a sob, but to hold back something else. A scream. Robert could kill Jaime. Robert could strip her of everything. But the true danger, the one that made her stomach twist, was this. Robert might try to take her children from her not by blade, but by law, and laws were harder to fight than swords. Narration prompt 8. Sora prompt 8. Stannis Baratheon stands on the deck of a dark ship off Dragonstone in a heavy cloak, his jaw set like stone, Davos Seaworth beside him with weathered hands on the rail, the sea churning under a low sky as a raven's message is read and crushed in a fist. Dragonstone was a harsh place, built on black stone and older fires, and it bred harsh men. Stannis Baratheon read the raven's message twice, not because he doubted it, but because the world had a way of twisting even clear words into lies. When he finished, he folded the parchment with precise movements and handed it back to Maester Cresson without a word. For a moment, the only sound was the sea battering the rock below, relentless as law. Davos Seaworth watched Stannis' face carefully. He had learned, over years of serving him, that Stannis did not show storms. He became them. Well, Davos asked quietly. Stannis' eyes lifted, cold and bright. My brother has finally opened his eyes, Stannis said. There was no satisfaction in his voice, only grim inevitability. Cresson cleared his throat. The king asks you to come at once, the old maester said, voice tremulous. He says he needs you. Stannis' mouth tightened. He needed me when he chose a crown over duty, Stannis said. He needed me when he filled his halls with flatterers and thieves. He needed me when he... Stannis stopped, jaw clenching as if the words themselves were bitter. Davos shifted his weight. Davos said gently, but he's asking now. Stannis' gaze snapped to Davos. For a heartbeat, something almost human flickered there. Pain, perhaps, or the memory of being ignored and slighted and yet still bound by blood. He is king, Stannis said finally, as if stating a sentence. And the succession has been poisoned. Cresson's hands wrung together. The queen, the children, treason, Stannis said flatly. Incest, bastardy, the realm built on a lie. Davos hesitated. He had heard the whispers, as all men did, but hearing them named so plainly made his stomach turn. What will the king do? Stannis' gaze drifted out to sea, to the gray horizon. What he must, Stannis said. What he should have done long ago. He turned abruptly. Prepare the ship, he ordered. We sail within the hour. Cresson blinked. In this weather? Stannis' eyes were flint. The weather does not command me. Davos watched Stannis stride away, cloak snapping, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with wind. If Robert Baratheon had summoned Stannis, it meant the matter was beyond pride now. It meant the realm stood on the edge of something sharp. As sailors moved to obey, Davos remained at the rail, staring at the dark sea. He had smuggled onions through storms. He had survived battles. He had seen men drown and burn. But this was different. This was a war that began in a bed and might end in fire. Behind him, Stannis' voice rang out, cutting through wind and salt. If the king's heirs are false, he said to no one and everyone, then the throne is mine by law. The words hung heavy, not boastful, but inevitable. Davos swallowed hard. In King's Landing, men still slept. In taverns, drunks still laughed. In the Red Keep, a queen sat caged and a king paced like a beast. And on the sea, the true heir sailed toward a crown he had never stopped wanting, even when he pretended he did. Narration prompt 9. Sora prompt 9. Eddard Stark rides through snowy pines with a small escort in gray cloaks, his face grim and thoughtful. A raven cage strapped behind him. while far to the south Robert Baratheon stands in the godswood of the Red Keep before a white heart tree, his breath visible in the cold morning air. The raven reached Winterfell like a blade thrown across the realm. Eddard Stark read the message once and felt the world tilt. He read it again and felt the cold settle into his bones. Not the cold of northern snow, but the cold of knowledge that a friend had finally fallen into the pit everyone had watched him skirt for years. Robert needs you. The words were simple, but Ned heard the fear behind them. He heard desperation, and beneath that, he heard something worse. The possibility that Robert might do something unforgivable. Ned told Catelyn quickly, quietly. Her face paled, but her eyes hardened. "Go," she said. "Go before he destroys himself." So Ned rode south with a small escort, gray cloak snapping, wolves trotting behind for the first league before turning back to the safety of home. The road was long and the days colder as he moved away from the north, but Ned felt as if he were riding into a fire. In King's Landing, Robert stood in the godswood at dawn and stared at the heart tree as if it might judge him. The white bark glowed faintly. The carved face stared back, red eyes weeping sap like blood. Robert had never liked the godswood. Felt too quiet, too old, too watchful. Barristan had suggested it, privacy away from the ears of walls. Robert had come, not because he believed in northern gods, but because he needed somewhere to breathe. He pressed a hand to the heart tree's bark. It was cold, rough. He wondered, absurdly, if Ned had once pressed his hand here when he lived in the Red Keep as a ward. He wondered if Lyanna had ever stood beneath these branches and laughed. Lyanna, the name twisted inside him like a knife. He had wanted her so badly he had built a war around the wanting. He had won, and the prize had been a coffin. Now he had a queen who had never loved him, and children who were not his, and a realm that might shatter because he had been too blind or too drunk to see. Footsteps crunched behind him. He turned to find Barristan at the edge of the trees, respectful, silent. "Your Grace," Barristan said. Robert's laugh was humorless. "You ever wonder," he muttered, "what the gods think of us?" Barristan hesitated. "I serve the king," he said carefully. "Not the gods." Robert snorted. The gods might have better sense. He looked back at the heart tree's face. "If Ned were here," Robert said softly, surprising himself with the words, "he'd tell me what to do." Barristan's voice was gentle. "He is coming." Robert's jaw clenched. "Not fast enough." As if summoned by the thought, a rustle came from the path. A guard hurried in, bowing quickly. "Your Grace," the guard said. "The prince demands an audience." Robert's eyes darkened. "Joffrey," he said, as if tasting poison. "Yes, Your Grace." Robert stared at the heart tree for a long moment, then removed his hand from the bark. The cold lingered on his skin like guilt. "Tell the prince," Robert said slowly, "that he will wait." The guard hesitated. "Your Grace." Robert's eyes flashed. "He will wait," Robert repeated, voice iron. "And if he throws another tantrum, I'll have him whipped like any common brat." The guard swallowed hard and backed away. Barristan watched Robert carefully. "That will only inflame him." Robert's mouth twisted. "Good," he said. "Let him burn. Let him feel what it's like to be denied." Barristan's brow furrowed slightly. "Your Grace, vengeance against a child." "He's not my child," Robert snapped. "Silence." Robert turned away, stalking out of the godswood, leaving the heart tree's carved eyes behind him. As he walked, he felt something settle in him. Not peace, but decision. If the realm must bleed, it would bleed on his terms. Far to the north, Ned Stark rode hard, snow melting into mud beneath his horse's hooves as he descended toward the south. He did not yet know the full shape of what awaited him. He only knew that his friend had called, and that honor demanded he answer, even if honor could not save them. Narration Prompt 10. Sora Prompt 10. Tywin Lannister sits at a heavy table in Casterly Rock with Kevan Lannister and other Lannister men around him, a crushed raven message in his hand, his face calm and terrible, while far away in a dark cell Jaime Lannister stares at his bound wrists, and Cersei Lannister stands at her window watching the city like a caged lioness. Casterly Rock received the truth the way it received everything, with stone-faced certainty. The messenger did not bring a raven. Ravens could be intercepted. Ravens could be delayed. Ravens could be read by men who pretended not to. This messenger came by ship, then by horse, then on foot through tunnels cut deep into the rock. He arrived sweating, dust-covered, and terrified. Tywin Lannister listened without interruption. He sat at a table carved from dark wood, its surface polished to a mirror sheen. Candles burned low, their flames steady in the still air of the rock. Kevan stood to his right, brow furrowed. Other men lingered, cousins, captains, advisors, waiting for Tywin to blink, to rage, to shatter something. Tywin did none of those. When the messenger finished, Tywin folded his hands and stared at the candle flame as if it were an accounting problem. "Cersei confessed," Tywin said at last, voice calm. The messenger nodded rapidly. "Yes, my lord. The king has confined her. Ser Jaime has been taken." A faint tightening passed through Tywin's jaw. It was the only sign the words had struck. "Taken," Tywin repeated. Kevan's voice was low. "If Jaime is captive, we have leverage," Kevan said. Tywin's gaze flicked to him, cold. "If Jaime is captive, we have weakness," Tywin corrected. "The king holds a lion by the throat. He will think it makes him powerful." One of the men, Ser Adam, younger and eager, leaned forward. "We should ride at once," he said. "Take the Gold Road, smash the king's men, free Ser Jaime, bring the queen home." Tywin's eyes settled on him like a weight. "And do you think," Tywin said softly, "that the realm will applaud us for marching on the king after my daughter admits to incest and treason?" Adam's face flushed. "My lord." Tywin raised a hand, and the man fell silent. Tywin's gaze returned to the candle. "Robert Baratheon is a blunt instrument," Tywin said. "He will believe he can solve this by swinging a hammer." Kevan's mouth tightened. "He might kill them." "He might," Tywin agreed. There was no emotion in it, only assessment. "But he will not act without considering what the realm will think. His pride will demand secrecy until he can turn humiliation into victory." Kevan's voice dropped. "And Stannis?" Tywin's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Stannis will come," Tywin said, "and he will demand law. Law is a weapon sharper than steel, because men convince themselves it is righteous." A hush fell. At last Tywin looked up, and his eyes were pale and merciless. "Send word to the bannermen," he said, quietly. "No trampits. No banners yet. I want men gathered as if for a tourney, as if for training." Kevan nodded. "And gold." Tywin's gaze sharpened. "Pull it," Tywin said. "Every coin we can. Let King's Landing feel hunger. Let them remember whose gold built their comfort." The messenger licked his lips. "My lord, what of the queen? Of the children?" Tywin's eyes did not soften. "The children are Lannisters," Tywin said. "Whatever their father's name, their mother is mine." His voice dropped slightly, quiet and terrible. "And my daughter will not die in another man's cage." Kevan hesitated. This could become war. Tywin's gaze held steady. "It is already war," Tywin said. "It began the moment she confessed." In King's Landing, Jaime sat in a cell beneath the red keep with rope marks raw around his wrists. The darkness smelled of damp stone and old piss and regret. He stared at his hands as if they belonged to someone else, as if he could scrape away the years with his nails. He had killed one king once to save a city from wildfire. Now he had not killed another and wondered what name the world would give him for it. Above him, somewhere in her chamber, Cersei stood at the window and watched the city's waking streets. She saw smoke rising from cook fires. She saw tiny figures moving like ants. She saw nothing of the war she had unleashed, because war did not announce itself at first. It began in silence, in ravens and decisions and men sharpening swords behind closed doors. She pressed her palm against the glass, as if she could push through it into freedom. In the godswood, the heart tree watched. In the north, snow fell. In the rock, men gathered. And in the red keep, Robert Baratheon paced with a hammer in his hand, waiting for the moment the realm would give him permission to swing. Narration prompt 11. Sora prompt 11. Stannis Baratheon enters the Red Keep's outer yard in a dark cloak, Davos Seaworth at his shoulder, Ser Barristan Selmy waiting in white armor beside a line of gold cloaks, torches burning against dawn mist while the castle stone seems to lean in close to listen. Stannis Baratheon arrived without music and without flourish, as if the very idea of announcing himself offended him. The dawn mist clung to his cloak and to the hard set of his jaw. Davos followed 2 paces behind, boots damp, eyes scanning the yard with the wary look of a man who knew that castles did not need storms outside when they had storms within. Ser Barristan Selmy stepped forward to meet them, the white of his armor pale in torchlight. "Lord Stannis," Barristan said, and bowed his head. Respect, not warmth. Stannis gave a curt nod in return.
Ser Barristan.
His gaze slid over the yard gold cloaks, stable boys, the harsh angles of the keep, and then fixed on Barristan again. "Where is the king?" "In a private chamber," Barristan replied. "He asked that you be brought to him directly." Stannis's mouth tightened as if he had expected nothing else. "And the queen?" Barristan's eyes did not flicker. "Confined." "And the Kingslayer?" "Confined." Stannis's gaze sharpened, a blade drawn from a sheath. "Good." Davos swallowed back the urge to speak. The word good, spoken like that, carried the weight of a sentence already decided. Barristan gestured, and they moved through the archways, deeper into stone that had been built to withstand siege. As they walked, Stannis did not ask questions. He did not need to. The letter had told him enough. The king's heirs were false. The realm was poised above a pit, and Robert had finally reached for duty like a man grabbing a sword too late. They were brought into a chamber that smelled of old wood and cold ash. Robert waited by the window, broad-shouldered, unshaven, eyes rimmed red as if sleep had refused him. He turned at their entrance, and for a moment his face shifted relief, irritation, a flash of shame quickly buried. "Brother," Robert said, and his voice cracked on it. Stannis bowed, not deeply. "Your grace." Robert's lips curled, not quite a smile. "Always your grace with you." He glanced at Davos. "And who's this?" "My man," Stannis said. "Davos Seaworth." Robert's eyes narrowed. "The smuggler." Davos's neck prickled. He bowed anyway. "Your grace." Robert grunted and waved him off, then locked his gaze on Stannis again, as if staring hard enough could force him to speak the words Robert feared. "Well," Robert said hoarsely, "you came. Now tell me." Stannis's eyes were hard. "Tell you what you already know?" he asked. "That the queen committed treason, that the children are bastards, that the line of succession is broken." Robert flinched as if struck. He turned away, hand braced on the window frame. He muttered. "Say it. Hear it. Make it real." Stannis did not soften. "It is real," he said. "And by law, by every law that has held the realm together since Aegon's conquest, the throne passes to me." Robert's shoulders tensed. "I didn't summon you so you could snatch at my crown like a starving dog." Stannis's gaze burned. "I did not snatch," he said. "I waited. I served. I held your seat while you drank and hunted and—" His voice tightened. "I watched you let corruption fester because it was easier than seeing it."
Robert Spoon, Anger Flaring.
"You think I wanted this?" he roared. "You think I wanted to look at my own son and wonder if he was a mockingbird in a lion's nest?" Stannis stepped closer, unflinching. "I think," he said, voice low, "that wanting has never mattered. Only duty." Robert's laugh was harsh. "Duty," he spat. "Fine. Duty. What does duty demand, Stannis? Say it. Don't hide behind your laws. Tell me plain." Stannis's eyes did not blink. "Execute the traitors," he said. "Cersei Lannister, Jaime Lannister, and the bastard-born who would claim your throne." The words fell like stones into silence. Robert stared at him, mouth slightly open, as if he had expected the law to speak a different language. Something dark stirred behind his eyes. "No," Robert said, voice raw. "Not the children." Stannis' expression did not change. "The children are the treason made flesh," he replied. "If they live, they remain a claim, a banner for any man who wants war." Robert's fists clenched. "They're still children." Stannis' gaze was merciless. "So was Rhaegar's," he said. That name hit Robert like a blow. The room tightened. Davos watched Robert's face twist with memories he had never spoken aloud. Robert's voice dropped, thick with pain and rage. "Don't you dare," he growled. Stannis did not look away. "The realm does not bend for your feelings," he said. "It bends for law, for the line. If you spare them, you invite rebellion. You invite Tywin Lannister to place one of them on a throne and call it justice." Robert's breathing came heavy. He looked as if he might throw himself at Stannis. Barristan shifted subtly, ready to step between brothers if blood came. Robert turned abruptly and slammed his fist into the wall. Stone dust fell. "There has to be another way," he said, voice shaking. "A way that doesn't make me a butcher." Stannis' eyes narrowed. "There is always another way," he said. "There is simply the way men refuse to take because it costs them." Davos felt the chill settle. He realized then that Stannis had come not only to counsel, but to claim. The crown sat in the air between them like a weight no one could see, pressing down harder with every heartbeat. Narration Prompt 12. Sora Prompt 12. Robert Baratheon sits at a heavy table with Stannis Baratheon and Ser Barristan Selmy, while Varys and Peter Baelish linger near a map strewn with daggers and wax seals. Grand Maester Pycelle sweats over ink, the room lit by low braziers that turn faces into sharp masks. By mid-morning, the room was full of men who smelled opportunity and blood. Robert sat at the head of the table like a king carved from resentment. Stannis sat opposite, rigid, as if his spine were a rod of iron. Barristan stood behind Robert, an unmoving white presence. Varys hovered like silk and shadow, hands folded. Littlefinger lounged with the casual ease of a man who believed chaos loved him. Pycelle attempted to look useful by arranging parchment and ink, though his hands shook so badly the quill scratched like a rat in a wall. Robert stared at the map spread across the table. Roads, keeps, the black line of the trident, the golden tooth of the Westerlands. It all looked too small to hold the disaster unfolding. "We lock the gates," Robert said. "No one leaves. No one enters without my word." Stannis nodded once. "Good." Littlefinger's smile flickered. "Closing the gates will choke trade," he said lightly. "The city will complain." Robert's eyes burned. "Let it complain," he said. "It'll complain louder if Tywin marches." Varys's voice was soft. "Your Grace, the city is a mouth," he murmured. "If it is starved, it will bite. Bread riots can spill as much blood as armies." Robert glanced at him with contempt. "Then see that it eats," he said. "You have ears everywhere. Find me grain. Find me men who owe favors. Find me anything that keeps King's Landing from tearing itself apart before Tywin even arrives." Varys bowed. "As you command." Stannis' gaze slid to the map. "We must send ravens," he said, "to every great house. The truth must be declared, or we lose the right to claim righteousness." Robert's jaw clenched. "Declared," he echoed, bitter. "And how do you propose we declare it? Shall I stand in the throne room and tell my lords I've been cuckolded by my own Kingsguard?" Stannis' eyes were flint. "Yes," he said, "you will, because the realm needs certainty more than it needs your pride." Robert's face reddened. Littlefinger's eyes gleamed with pleasure at the crack between brothers. Barristan's voice cut in, calm but firm. "If the truth is spoken, it must be spoken with proof," he said. "Not rumor, not accusation." Pycelle cleared his throat. "There are books," he offered weakly. "Lineages, records of hair and eyes. Robert's gaze snapped to him. "Books won't save me from Tywin," he snarled. Stannis leaned forward. "The proof is the Queen's confession," he said. "Put it in writing. Seal it. Have witnesses. Then the realm will know." Robert's hands tightened on the table. "And after," he said slowly, "what then? You want their heads." Stannis did not hesitate. "Yes." Robert stared at him. "And if I refuse?" Stannis's voice was quiet. "Then you choose disorder. And if you choose disorder, you lose the moral ground to punish anyone who follows it." Littlefinger tapped a finger on the map. "There are intermediate solutions," he said, tone almost amused. "The faith loves penance. The wall loves criminals. Exile loves inconvenient family members." Stannis's gaze cut to him. "The wall does not take women," he said flatly. "And exile leaves claimants alive." Littlefinger smiled. "Alive claimants can be managed." Robert barked a humorless laugh. "Managed," he repeated. "Everything you say sounds like you're stroking a cat." Varys's eyes softened, almost kind. "Your Grace," he murmured. "If you kill the children, you will turn the realm against you, no matter what the law says. Many lords will not stomach it. Even those who hate Lannisters will fear a king who spills children's blood." Robert's throat worked. The image haunted him. Joffrey's pale face in the torchlight, Myrcella clinging to her doll, Tommen crying. He hated Joffrey's cruelty, but hate was not the same as killing. Stannis watched him, expression unreadable. "Fear is sometimes necessary," Stannis said. Barristan's voice was steady. "Fear is not the same as legitimacy." Robert's gaze drifted back to the map. "Tywin will move," he said. "He'll hit the Riverlands. He'll burn villages to remind the realm what happens when lions are cornered." Pycelle swallowed. "We could send word to Lord Tywin," he offered. "Negotiate." Robert slammed his fist down. "Negotiate," he roared. "With a man whose daughter tried to steal my bloodline?" Stannis's eyes narrowed. "Negotiation is weakness," he said. Littlefinger's smile grew. "Negotiation is time," he corrected, soft as a knife. "And time is often the difference between a king who survives and a king who becomes a story men tell children at night." Robert's gaze snapped to him, cold. "Then buy me time," Robert said. "With coin, with promises, with whatever poison you call politicking." Littlefinger bowed slightly. "With pleasure." Robert pushed back from the table, chest heaving. "We keep Jaime alive," he said, as if forcing the words through iron. "For now. He's a chain around Tywin's throat." Stannis's expression did not change, but his voice cooled further. "Chains can be broken," he said, "and lions will bite even while choking." Robert looked at Barristan. "Move Jaime," Robert ordered. "Somewhere only my men know." Barristan nodded once. "At once." "And Cersei," Robert added, then hesitated, the name sour. "Keep her locked. No letters. No whispers." Varys's gaze slid to the door as if he could already hear whispers scraping at it. "There are always ways to send messages," he murmured. Robert's eyes hardened. "Then cut off her ways," he said. "If my wife speaks to my enemies, I'll take her tongue." Silence fell. Even Stannis seemed to pause at the brutality of it. Robert drew a breath and spoke again, voice lower. "And prep. Are the court," he said, "because when Ned arrives, I will need him to stand beside me when I tell the realm the truth." Littlefinger's eyes glittered. Varys's smile was faint and sad. Stannis's gaze remained fixed, as if he already saw the crown settling where he believed it belonged. Narration prompt 13. Sora prompt 13. Cersei Lannister is brought into a small stone chamber under guard, her back straight and her chin high. Robert Baratheon waiting with a cup untouched. Stannis Baratheon standing like a shadow near the wall. Ser Barristan Selmy watching closely as Cersei's eyes flash with controlled defiance. They brought Cersei to him like a prisoner, and Robert hated himself for the satisfaction it gave him. She entered with her head high, hair braided tight as if she had woven it into armor. Her gown was dark green, the color of deep forests and poisonous leaves. 2 guards flanked her, hands on sword hilts. She did not look at them. She looked only at Robert. He stood when she entered, though he did not move toward her. Across the room, Stannis remained near the wall, silent, a hard presence that made the chamber feel colder. "So," Robert said, voice rough, "you told me the truth." Cersei's mouth curled. "Did you expect a lie?" she asked. Robert's hand twitched as if reaching for his hammer that was not there. "I expected you to die with it in your mouth." Cersei's eyes did not flinch. "Then you never understood me." Robert stepped closer, stopping just out of reach. "Why?" he demanded. "Why confess now, after all these years?" Cersei's gaze flickered for the first time, quick, sharp, toward Stannis. She knew what he represented. Law, death, no mercy for secrets. She looked back at Robert. "Because someone else was going to tell you," she said quietly. Robert's brow furrowed. "Who?" Cersei's lips pressed together, as if tasting the name. "Jon Arryn suspected," she said. "Your hand before Ned. He asked questions. He looked at hair and eyes and books like a man trying to solve a riddle." Robert's face tightened, remembering Jon Arryn's sickbed, the whispered last words no one had understood. "The seed is strong," Robert muttered, and his own voice sounded haunted. Cersei watched him. "When he died," she continued, "I thought the danger had passed, but it didn't. Men still looked. Varys looked. Littlefinger looked. They always look." Stannis' voice cut in cold. "And you thought confession would save you?" Cersei's gaze snapped to him, contempt flashing. "Save me?" she repeated. "No. I thought confession might save my children." Robert's throat worked. The word children twisted inside him like a hook. "You used them," Stannis said. "You used them to steal a crown." Cersei's voice sharpened. "I gave them a crown because you would have given me nothing else." She shot back at Robert, not Stannis. "You never wanted a wife. You wanted a bed warmer and a broodmare. You wanted a ghost." Robert's face flushed with rage. "Don't you speak of Lyanna," he snarled. Cersei's eyes glittered. "She's in every breath you take," she said softly. "Even now." Robert's fist clenched. He forced himself to speak through the anger. "What do you want?" he asked. "What do you think you deserve?" Cersei's gaze held his, steady and fierce. "I want my children to live," she said. "I will drink poison myself if it buys them breath. I will walk naked through the streets if the faith demands it. I will be whatever you want, whore, traitor, monster, so long as you do not kill them." Stannis' voice was quiet and terrible. "You bargain with lives you forfeited the moment you committed treason." Cersei's head turned slightly, eyes narrowing. "You speak of law because law is the only love you've ever known," she said. "But law will not keep the realm together when Tywin comes." At the mention of Tywin, the air tightened. Robert's jaw clenched. "You think I fear your father?" Robert said. Cersei's smile was thin. "I think you should," she replied. "He will not forgive humiliation. Not from you. Not from Stannis. Not from anyone." Her gaze flicked to Stannis again, and for the first time there was something like warning in it. "He will burn everything that stands between him and what he believes is his." Robert's voice dropped. "Then tell him," he said slowly. "Tell him to come. Tell him I'll meet him with my hammer." Cersei's eyes sharpened. "You still think this is a battlefield," she said. "But this is a court. Tywin will not fight you like a man. He will fight you like a plague." Robert's nostrils flared. "Enough," he growled. "You're confined. You will write a confession in your own hand. You will name Jaime. You will name the truth." Cersei's throat worked, but she did not beg. "And after?" she asked. Robert hesitated. That hesitation was the crack Stannis stepped into. "After," Stannis said, voice flat, "you will be judged." Cersei's gaze locked on Robert. "And you?" she asked him. "Will you let him make you a butcher?" Robert's eyes were bloodshot. "I will let no one make me anything," he said, but his voice lacked certainty. Cersei stepped forward, and the guards tensed. She stopped, careful, her voice dropping into something almost intimate. "Whatever you think of me," she said, "remember this. If you kill them, you will not be killing Lannisters. You will be killing your own legacy." She let the words hang. "The realm will call you monster, and monsters are not obeyed for long." Robert stared at her, and for a heartbeat he saw not a queen, but a lioness cornered, teeth bared, willing to burn herself to keep her cubs alive. He hated her, and he feared, in a way he would never admit, that she might be right. Narration prompt 14. Sora prompt 14. Joffrey Baratheon storms into a torchlit hallway with Sandor Clegane at his back, his face flushed with fury. While he slams a hand against a door guarded by gold cloaks, Ser Barristan Selmy approaching fast, and servants shrinking away like leaves in wind. Joffrey did not know the full truth, but he could smell it the way wolves smelled blood. He moved through the keep like a fire looking for dry wood. Sandor Clegane trailed him, silent, a scarred shadow with a dog's patience. The hound's hand rested near his sword, not out of loyalty, but out of habit. Violence was the only language he had ever trusted. "Move!" Joffrey snapped at a guard who did not move fast enough. The man stepped aside, face stiff. Gold cloaks looked at each other and away. No one wanted to be the first to tell a prince no. Joffrey reached the guarded door and slammed his palm against it. "Open," he demanded. "Open it now." The guard at the door, older, broader, did not reach for the latch. "Prince Joffrey," he said carefully. "The king has ordered." Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "The king," he repeated, as if tasting something bitter. "My father." The guard's jaw tightened. "Yes, your grace. I will go in," Joffrey said. His voice was sharp with the certainty of a boy who had never truly been denied. The guard did not move. Joffrey's hand shot out and struck the man across the face. The sound cracked through the corridor. The guard's head snapped to the side, but he did not draw steel. He only swallowed, eyes flicking briefly to the other guards. Sandor's mouth curled faintly, not amused, just empty. "Do you know who I am?" Joffrey hissed, stepping closer. "Do you know what I can do to you?" "I know," the guard said, voice stiff, blood welling at his lip. "And I know what the king can do to me if I disobey." Joffrey's face twisted with rage. "He cannot stop me," he spat. A voice cut in, calm and hard. "He can." Ser Barristan Selmy approached, white cloak sweeping. His eyes settled on Joffrey like a cold hand. Joffrey straightened instinctively, forcing his face into something regal. "Ser Barristan," he said, voice sweet as rot. "These fools are keeping me from my own mother." Barristan's gaze did not soften. "The queen is confined," he said simply. Joffrey's smile faltered. "Confined?" he repeated, incredulous. "By whose order?" Barristan's voice was flat. "By the king's." Joffrey's cheeks flushed. "That is impossible," he said. "My father would never." Barristan's eyes sharpened. "Your father has ordered many things you did not expect," he said. Something flickered across Joffrey's face. Fear, quick and bright, immediately smothered by anger. He turned his rage outward like a blade. "This is treason," Joffrey snarled. "I order you to move these men aside." Barristan's expression did not change. "You do not command the Kingsguard," he said. "Not while the king lives." Joffrey's breathing quickened. "I am the heir," he said, voice rising. "I am the prince. I will be king." Barristan looked at him for a long moment, and something like sadness flickered there before it vanished behind duty. "Go back to your chambers," Barristan said quietly. "Now." Joffrey's eyes blazed. "No," he spat. He stepped forward, and Sandor shifted slightly behind him, a subtle movement that could have been protection or readiness to drag the boy away if commanded. Joffrey leaned in close to Barristan. "If you touch me," he whispered, voice shaking with fury, "I will have you killed." Barristan's voice was almost gentle. "If you threaten me again," he replied, "I will tell the king exactly what you said, and you will learn what it means to be less powerful than you believed." Joffrey's lips parted. For the first time, he looked genuinely uncertain. Then the door behind them opened abruptly. Robert Baratheon stood there, eyes bloodshot, face grim. The sight of him, awake, present, not softened by drink, hit the corridor like a shockwave. Joffrey straightened, relief and anger twisting together. "Father," he said quickly, "they won't let me." Robert's gaze locked on him, heavy and cold. "Father," Robert repeated, voice low. Joffrey blinked. "Yes," he said, uncertain now. "Father." Robert's hand flashed out. The slap was loud. It sent Joffrey stumbling back, hand flying to his cheek. For a heartbeat, the corridor froze. Joffrey's eyes filled with shocked tears, not from pain, but from humiliation. "You," he gasped. "You hit me." Robert's voice was a growl. "I should have hit you years ago," he said. "Maybe you'd have grown into something other than a cruel little spider." Joffrey's breath hitched. Sandor's eyes flicked to Robert, then away again. Barristan remained still. Joffrey swallowed hard, eyes wide. "Why?" he whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Robert stared down at him, and the hatred in his face warred with something that looked uncomfortably like grief. "Go," Robert said, voice rough. "Go to your chambers, and pray you never test me again." Joffrey's lips trembled. For a moment he looked like a boy, then his face hardened into something uglier. "This is not over," he whispered, and turned, storming away with Sandor following like a curse. Robert watched him go, shoulders heaving. When the prince vanished down the corridor, Robert turned slightly, gaze flicking to Barristan. "Move the queen," Robert said quietly. "Not there. Somewhere else." Barristan's eyes widened just slightly. "Your Grace." Robert's jaw clenched. "If the boy can reach her door, so can anyone," he said. "And if anyone reaches her, the truth leaks." "I will not be undone by a child's tantrum." Barristan bowed. "As you command." Robert stared down the corridor where Joffrey had vanished. His hand flexed as if still feeling the slap. In that moment, he realized something with a cold clarity. The boy's eyes had not looked like his, not even when they filled with tears. Narration prompt 15. Sora prompt 15. A messenger in muddy leathers kneels before Robert Baratheon and Stannis Baratheon in a war room, unrolling a blood-stained report, while Peter Baelish leans over the table with a thin smile and Varys watches with quiet worry, torchlight flickering over maps marked with fresh red lines. The realm announced Tywin's answer not with banners, but with fire. The messenger arrived stinking of smoke, clothes spattered with mud and something darker. He dropped to one knee and unrolled a parchment that had been stained at the edges, as if it had been handled by hands that had not stayed clean. "Your Grace," he panted. "The Riverlands." He swallowed, eyes darting. "Raiders. Men in armor without banners. But..." His throat worked. "But the small folk say they were lions. They say they wore red beneath their mail." Robert's face darkened. Stannis leaned forward, expression sharpening. "Where?" Stannis demanded. "Near the Mummers' Ford," the messenger said, "and along the Tumblestone."
Village burned.
"Men hanged." His voice broke slightly. "They took girls. They took grain." Robert's hand tightened on the table so hard the wood creaked. "Gregor," he said softly, and his voice was ice. "That's Gregor Clegane's work." Littlefinger's eyes glittered. "Unfortunate," he murmured, as if discussing weather. Varys's voice was gentle and grave. "It begins," he said. Robert slammed his fist down. "It's already begun," he snarled. "Tywin's testing me, testing the realm, seeing if I flinch." Stannis's gaze was cold. "He moves without declaration to claim innocence," he said. "A lion's trick." Robert's mouth twisted. "A coward's trick," he spat. Barristan spoke, calm but urgent. "If the Riverlands burn, Lord Hoster Tully will call banners, he warned. And if banners rise there, they will rise elsewhere. Robert's breath came heavy. The map felt too small again. He could see, in his mind, villages he'd never visited burning anyway because men like Tywin treated small folk like kindling. We send word to Riverrun, Robert said. Tell them, he hesitated. Tell them what? The truth? The lie? Tell them to hold. Tell them the crown will respond. Stannis' eyes narrowed. Respond how? He asked. With what army? You have not yet declared the truth to the realm. You are fighting with half a face covered. Robert's gaze snapped to him. I'm not ready, Robert growled. Stannis' voice did not rise. That made it worse. You will never be ready, he said. No man is ready to confess his shame. But kings do it anyway, because the realm demands certainty. Robert's chest heaved. He looked away, jaw clenched tight. Somewhere deep inside him, he knew Stannis was right. That did not make it easier to swallow. Barristan's voice was steady. Your Grace, Lord Eddard Stark will arrive soon, he said. You asked for him because you trust him. Trust him now. Robert stared at the map. Red lines.
Burning village.
A lion's bite. I'll tell the realm, Robert said at last, voice rough. I'll tell them all. He lifted his gaze, and there was something wild in it. And then Tywin can come, and I'll meet him as a king should. Varys' smile was faint and sorrowful. Kings meet wars, he murmured. Wars do not always meet kings. Robert ignored him. He pointed at the messenger. Rest, he ordered, and then ride again. I want names. I want proof. I want Tywin unable to deny what he's done when I hold it up before the realm. The messenger bowed, trembling. As the man was led away, Littlefinger's eyes followed him, calculating. Varys watched the door, listening to whispers that hadn't yet been spoken. Stannis stared at the map like a judge reading a sentence. And Robert Baratheon stood over the realm's wounds, gripping pride like a weapon, preparing to turn his humiliation into a proclamation that would either save the Seven Kingdoms or tear them apart cleanly. Narration prompt 16. Sora prompt 16. Eddard Stark enters the Red Keep's Godswood in a gray cloak dusted with road grime. Robert Baratheon waiting near the White Heart tree with shoulders heavy. Both men's faces marked by years of war and regret as fallen leaves stick to their boots. Ned arrived under a sky the color of steel. He did not come with trumpets. He came with mud on his boots and the road carved into his face. When he was led into the Godswood, he felt the old quiet settle into his bones like memory. The heart tree stood pale and watching, its carved face weeping red sap that looked too much like blood. Robert waited beneath it, broad shoulders hunched, beard untrimmed. He looked older than Ned remembered. Not older in years, but older in damage. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was thick with everything they had never said. Robert broke it first. You came, he said, voice hoarse.
Ned nodded.
You called, he replied. Robert's laugh was short and ugly. He said. I called because I've made a mess only you might help me clean. Ned's eyes sharpened. What kind of mess? He asked, though he already knew the shape of it. Ravens did not carry details, but fear had its own tone. Robert's gaze drifted to the heart tree. She confessed, he said quietly. Ned's brow furrowed. Cersei, he said. Robert nodded once, the motion stiff. She told me the children aren't mine, Robert said. She told me they're Jaime's. The words landed in the Godswood like stones thrown into still water. Ned felt his stomach twist, not with surprise. He had heard whispers, once, faint as smoke, but with the weight of confirmation. It made the world feel colder. Ned drew a slow breath. And what have you done? He asked. Robert's mouth tightened. I've caged her, he said. And I've caged Jaime. His voice dropped. And I've caged myself. Ned's gaze held his. You summoned Stannis, Ned said. Robert's eyes flickered, and for a heartbeat Ned saw raw shame there. Robert muttered. He's here. He says law demands their heads. Ned's jaw clenched. "And you?" he asked. Robert's voice cracked. "I don't know," he admitted, and the admission sounded like defeat. "I want to kill them all," he said, sudden fury flashing. "I want to smash their skulls against the throne and watch the blood run down the steps." His breath came harsh. "And then I look at Tommen and," his voice faltered, "and I hear myself sounding like Ares." Ned's expression tightened. "Do not become him," he said quietly. "You fought to end his cruelty. Do not wear it as a crown." Robert stared at the heart tree's red eyes. "Tywin's already burning the Riverlands," he said. "He hasn't declared, but Gregor's out there, hanging men like meat." His voice shook with rage. "He thinks I'll flinch." Ned's gaze hardened. "Then you must be seen," he said. "The realm must know where the crown stands." Robert's laugh was bitter. "And where does it stand, Ned?" he demanded. "On my pride? On my shame? On my hammer?" Ned stepped closer, boots sinking slightly into damp earth. "It stands on justice," he said. "Not vengeance. Justice." Robert's eyes burned. "Justice would be killing them," he muttered. Ned's gaze did not waver. "Justice is truth," he said, "and law. But law must not become cruelty." Robert turned sharply, anger flaring. "Easy for you," he snapped. "You've always been clean. You've always been honorable. You've never had to look at a child and wonder if he's laughing at you behind his eyes." Ned's face tightened, and something flickered there. Pain, quick and deep. "I have looked at a child and carried a secret," he said quietly, voice like stone. "And I know what it costs." Robert stared at him, suspicion flickering. "What secret?" he demanded. Ned's jaw clenched. "Not this day," he said, and the words were final. Robert's eyes narrowed, but the rage drained slightly, replaced by exhaustion. "Help me," he said, the words scraped raw. "Help me do this without becoming a monster." Ned looked at him for a long moment, seeing the boy he had fought beside, the man who had laughed too loudly and bled too easily, the king who had let himself rot because ruling had never been the part he wanted. "You must act before the realm chooses for you," Ned said. "You must declare the truth, publicly, with witnesses, and you must decide the children's fate in a way that denies Tywin a banner." Robert's throat worked. "Stannis will demand death," he said. Ned's gaze hardened. "Stannis is not king," he said. "You are." Robert swallowed. His eyes turned to the heart tree again, as if asking a god he didn't believe in for an answer. "Then tell me," Robert said, voice low, "if you were me, what would you do?" Ned felt the weight of the realm settle on his shoulders like a cloak he had never wanted. He looked at Robert and spoke, careful and steady. "I would spare them," Ned said, "but I would bind them so tightly to the realm that no man could use them as a sword." Robert's eyes narrowed. "How?" Ned's voice did not falter. "Wardship," he said. "Separation. The faith for one, a great house for another, perhaps the citadel. Make them harmless by making them watched." Robert's jaw tightened. "And Cersei?" Ned's eyes hardened. "She must answer for treason," he said. "But her punishment must not ignite the realm. If you kill her, Tywin will burn everything. If you spare her entirely, you look weak." Robert's breath came heavy. He stared at Ned as if he were a man holding a torch in darkness. "Then we walk a knife," Robert whispered. Ned nodded once. "Yes," he said, "and if you slip, we all bleed." Narration prompt 17. Sora prompt 17. Stannis Baratheon stands rigid before Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark in a private chamber. Davos Seaworth watching from the side. Stannis holding a sheet of parchment like a sentence, while Robert's face is torn between rage and restraint and Ned's eyes stay steady. Stannis met Ned Stark as if meeting a rival claim given flesh. In the chamber, the air felt tight, the kind of tight that came before swords left sheaths. Stannis held a parchment in his hand. The ink was fresh, the seal unpressed, as if the words had been waiting for the one moment they could become law. "Lord Stark," Stannis said, voice flat. "Lord Stannis." Ned replied. Robert stood between them like a man trying to keep two cliffs from collapsing inward. His eyes darted, restless, angry. Stannis lifted the parchment slightly. "This is a proclamation," he said. "The Queen's confession, written in her hand, witnessed. The illegitimacy of the children, the treason, the lawful succession." Robert's jaw tightened. "You wrote it already," he growled. Stannis's gaze did not flicker. "Because it must be done," he said. "Delaying invites disaster." Ned's eyes narrowed. "Disaster is already here," he said. "The question is whether you deepen it." Stannis's gaze turned cold. "Mercy is weakness," he said. "The children must die." Davos shifted slightly, discomfort crossing his face. Ned's gaze hardened. "They will not," Ned said. Stannis's eyes sharpened. "You speak as if you have authority," he said. "You are not king." Ned met his gaze steady. "I speak as the man the king asked to help him keep the realm from tearing itself apart," he said. Robert's voice snapped in rough. "Enough," he said. "Both of you." Stannis turned to Robert. "Your Grace," he said, voice low. "If you spare them, you condemn the realm to war." Robert's fists clenched. "If I kill them," Robert snarled, "I condemn myself." Stannis's eyes were flint. "Better a condemned king than a broken kingdom." Ned's voice was quiet but firm. "A broken kingdom is exactly what you'll get if you spill children's blood," he said. "Lords will not rally to a butcher, law or no law." Stannis's gaze did not waver. "Lords will rally to the throne," he said. "They always do." Ned's gaze sharpened. "Not if the throne reeks of kinslaying," he said. "Not if the king becomes the thing men fear more than lions." Robert's breathing came heavy. He stared at the parchment in Stannis's hand as if it were a weapon aimed at his own heart. "What do you propose?" Stannis demanded of Ned, voice edged. "Wardship." His lip curled. "You would keep vipers alive because you pity them." Ned's eyes remained steady. "I would keep them alive because killing them makes them martyrs and banners," he said. "Alive and bound, they are neither." Stannis's gaze was cold. "Alive and bound, they remain a threat," he said. Robert's hands trembled. He looked from Stannis to Ned, from duty to mercy, from law to honor. Davos watched his king with a sailor's instinct for storms. He could see the lightning building behind Robert's eyes. Robert spoke at last, voice thick. "I will not kill them," he said. Stannis went very still. The chamber seemed to tighten around him. "You choose weakness," Stannis said quietly. Robert's eyes blazed. "I choose to remain a man," he snarled. "I choose not to become Ares in stag skin." Stannis's gaze hardened further. "Then you endanger the realm," he said. "And you endanger my claim." Robert's laugh was harsh. "Your claim," he repeated. "Always your claim." Stannis held the parchment higher. "Then sign this," he said. "Declare the truth. Name me heir. Give the realm certainty." Robert stared at the parchment. His hand hovered, as if reaching would burn him. Ned watched him, silent, knowing that whatever Robert chose now would echo for generations. Robert's fingers closed around the quill at last, and the motion looked like surrender and defiance all at once. Narration prompt 18. Sora prompt 18. A great hall fills with nobles in rich colors as Robert Baratheon stands before the Iron Throne with Eddard Stark at his side and Stannis Baratheon watching close. Ser Barristan Selmy in white armor nearby, while Varys and Peter Baelish observe from the crowd and whispers rise like smoke. The court gathered because it always gathered, like flies drawn to the scent of something spoiled. They came in velvet and fur and jeweled chains, faces carefully arranged into expressions of polite curiosity. They came because rumors had begun to crawl through the Red Keep like rats, fat with fear. Queen confined. A Kingsguard vanished. Prince slapped in a corridor. When kings moved in silence, courts grew loud. Robert stepped into the hall and the room shifted, whispers stalling as if mouths had suddenly gone dry. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. His eyes were hard. His jaw was set. He wore the crown, but the gold looked heavier than it ever had. Ned Stark stood at his side, gray as winter, steady as stone. Stannis stood behind, rigid, watching the crowd like a judge measuring guilt. Barristan's white cloak shone pale near the steps, a quiet reminder that steel was near if words failed. Robert's gaze swept over the lords. He saw familiar faces. Paxter Redwine's calculating eyes, old Lord Giles Rosby coughing into his sleeve, young knights eager for glory, ladies leaning toward each other like conspirators. He saw Varys smiling softly, and Littlefinger smiling sharper. He lifted his hand. The hall quieted, slowly, reluctantly. "My lords," Robert began, and his voice sounded strange, scraped raw. "My ladies." He swallowed. He could feel his heart pounding like a war drum. "You have heard whispers," he said. "You have smelled smoke. Now you will hear truth." A ripple moved through the crowd. Eyes sharpened. Faces leaned forward. Robert's gaze flicked, briefly, toward the doors as if expecting Tywin to stride in any moment with an army behind him. Then he looked forward again and spoke the words that would break the realm open. "My wife," Robert said, voice hard, "has confessed to treason." The word treason hit the hall like a thrown spear. Gasps, murmurs. A lady's hand flew to her mouth. A lord's face went pale. Robert continued, forcing each word through his teeth. "She has confessed that my supposed heirs, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, are not of my blood." For a heartbeat, silence held. Then the hall erupted into whispers that rose like smoke. Robert raised his voice, cutting through it. "They are the children of Jaime Lannister," he said, and the name fell like a hammer blow. "This is the Queen's confession, sealed and witnessed." Pycelle stepped forward with trembling hands, holding parchment like a relic. Barristan's gaze remained steady. Stannis' eyes were fixed. Some lords crossed themselves. Some looked toward Varys, as if he might deny it with a smile. Some looked toward Littlefinger, as if expecting him to laugh. Robert's voice dropped, thick with fury. "This is why Jon Arryn died," he said, and the sentence turned heads like a whip. "Because he found the truth, and it killed him." Ned's jaw clenched slightly. He felt the weight of that accusation like a stone, dangerous and proven, yet now spoken by a king. Varys' smile faltered just a fraction. Littlefinger's eyes gleamed. Robert lifted a hand again, forcing quiet. "By law," he said, voice hardening into something like iron, "the line of succession passes to my brother Stannis Baratheon." The hall shuddered with reaction. Some faces tightened, some eyes narrowed. Stannis stood rigid, receiving the words as if they were his due, though his mouth did not smile. Robert continued, and now his voice carried the sound of a man climbing onto a ledge. "I have named Stannis my lawful heir," he said, "and I swear before all of you, by crown and by steel, that no bastard will sit the Iron Throne." At the word bastard, the hall murmured again, some flinching, some nodding. Robert's gaze swept again, and he saw it, men calculating. Men smelling shifts in power like wolves. Men already deciding which banners to raise when lions and stags collided. Robert spoke the next words slowly, each one chosen with care, though care felt like weakness in his mouth. "The children will be placed under custody and wardship," he said. "They will be removed from court. They will not marry. They will not inherit. They will not rule." A gasp ran through the hall. The word custody carried a chill. The word wardship carried a threat disguised as mercy. "And the Queen?" someone called, Lord Rowan, voice sharp. Robert's eyes burned. "The Queen will be judged," he said, "as traitors are judged." Stannis stepped forward then, voice cutting through the hall with cold clarity. "Treason is death," he said, and the words made several lords stiffen. Robert's jaw tightened, but he did not contradict him. Not here, not now. The hall seethed. Some lords bowed their heads, accepting. Others stared at Stannis with wary eyes, knowing what kind of king law would make him. Some glanced at Ned Stark, measuring whether honor could blunt Stannis' edge. In the crowd, Varys watched as if listening to a song he had heard before, sorrow in his eyes. Littlefinger's smile widened, because chaos had just been invited into the hall wearing a crown. Somewhere far away, in a chamber behind locked doors, Cersei heard the muffled roar of the court and knew the truth had finally left the cage she tried to hold it in. And in Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister would be hearing it soon, by raven, by rumor, by the tremor of a kingdom shifting beneath his feet. Narration prompt 19. Sora prompt 19. In a narrow stone passage beneath the Red Keep, Ser Barristan Selmy leads armed men carrying a hooded prisoner, while Lannister guards in red cloaks burst from a side door with blades drawn, torchlight flashing off steel as Jaime Lannister's face is revealed in the chaos. They tried to take Jaime the moment the truth became public, as if Tywin's will could reach through stone by sheer force. Barristan had moved him before dawn, because Barristan trusted nothing that stayed still. Jaime was hooded, wrists bound, footsteps controlled. The passage beneath the keep was narrow, damp, lined with stones that had heard more secrets than any man. For guards surrounded him, stag men with hard faces. Barristan walked at the front, sword in hand, eyes sharp. He did not speak. He listened. He could hear the keep above, distant footsteps, murmurs, the faint echo of a court turning into a storm. They were halfway through the passage when the side door slammed open. Men in red cloaks spilled out like blood from a wound. Their swords flashed. Their faces were tense, determined, desperate. "Now!" One hissed, and the passage erupted. Steel sang in tight space. A stag man went down with a blade in his throat, gurgling. Another guard slammed his spear into a red cloak's belly, driving him back. Jaime lurched as hands grabbed at him, pulling. Barristan moved like lightning despite his years. His sword cut upward, slicing through a red cloak's arm. Blood splattered the stone. Another attacker lunged, and Barristan turned, blade catching the thrust and sliding along it, then punching forward into the man's chest with brutal precision. The passage filled with grunts and curses, the wet sound of steel biting flesh. Jaime's hood was yanked back in the struggle, and torchlight hit his face. His eyes narrowed, not frightened, but furious. "You fools," he snarled, recognizing one of the men. Lannister guard from the Queen's service. "Stop!" No one listened. They weren't here for Jaime's command. They were here for Tywin's. A red cloak grabbed Jaime's bound wrists and hauled him toward the side door. Jaime stumbled, then caught his balance, twisting hard. His wrist screamed with pain. He slammed his shoulder into the man's chest, knocking him back. Barristan's eyes flicked to Jaime for a heartbeat, assessing. Then he stepped between Jaime and the door, blade up, white cloak splattered now with red. "You will not take him," Barristan said, voice like iron. A red cloak, thicker, eyes wild, lunged. Barristan sidestepped and cut him down. Another attacked from behind, and Barristan pivoted, blade flashing, severing the man's hand at the wrist. The severed hand hit the stone with a wet slap. The fight lasted minutes that felt like hours. In tight space, there was no room for flourishes. Only kill or be killed. When it ended, the passage stank of blood and smoke. 3 stag men lay dead. 5 red cloaks lay sprawled, some still twitching, eyes staring. One moaned softly, trying to crawl away. Barristan's breathing came heavy, but his hands were steady. He wiped his blade on a dead man's cloak without looking down. Jaime stood with his wrists bound, chest heaving, eyes bright with anger. "They'll keep coming," Jaime said, voice low. Barristan's gaze met his, cold. "Yes," he said, "they will." Jaime's smile was bitter. "Because your king is telling the realm I'm a traitor," he said. "And my father will answer." Barristan's voice was flat. "Then your father should have raised a son who did not break his vows." Jaime's eyes flashed. "Vows," he spat. "You speak of vows as if the world isn't full of men who use them to hide their rot." Barristan's gaze did not waver. "The world is rotten," he said. That does not excuse you. Jaime's mouth curled, sharp. And what of Robert? He asked. His vows? His honor? His righteousness? He laughed softly. He's sparing the children, you know, not out of mercy, out of fear. He's afraid of becoming the monster he's always been. Barristan's expression tightened slightly. He is trying, he said. Jaime's eyes narrowed. Trying won't stop Tywin, he said. Trying won't stop war. Barristan stepped closer, sword still in hand. War is already here, he said quietly. And your life is the chain we will use to keep it from strangling the realm. Jaime stared at him, jaw clenched. For a moment, beneath the anger, something like exhaustion flickered in his eyes. You'll die for this, Jaime said softly. All of you. Barristan's voice was calm. Perhaps, he said, but not today. He nodded to the remaining guards. Move, he ordered. They pulled Jaime's hood back over his head and forced him forward, stepping over bodies, boots slipping slightly in blood. Behind them, the passage remained littered with the first true casualties of the new war. Men killed not on a battlefield, but beneath a castle in the dark, because truth had finally been spoken aloud. Narration prompt 20. Sora prompt 20. Robert Baratheon stands alone in the throne room at night with his warhammer resting against the iron throne steps. Eddard Stark approaching quietly, while Stannis Baratheon waits in shadow near the pillars and a raven's message lies open on the floor like a wound. Night fell like a lid slammed shut. The throne room was empty now, the court dismissed to whisper and scheme in candlelit corridors. The iron throne loomed above, its jagged blades catching torchlight like teeth. Robert stood below it, not sitting, as if the throne had become something he could not bear to touch. His warhammer leaned against the steps, heavy and patient. A raven message lay open on the floor, forgotten in the fury of the day. The wax seal was broken. The words were brief. Lannister banners raised. Men gathering at the Golden Tooth. Riverlands burning. Robert stared at it as if staring could rewrite it. He could hear, faintly, the echoes of the court's gasps, the murmurs, the way some men had looked at him with fear, others with hunger. He could feel the slap he'd given Joffrey still lingering in his palm like a bruise. Ned approached quietly, footsteps soft on stone. He stopped beside Robert, gaze lifting to the throne, then back to Robert's face. You did it, Ned said softly. Robert's laugh was harsh. He said, I did it. His voice cracked. I told them all I've been a fool. Ned's gaze was steady. You told them the truth, he said. Robert's eyes burned. Truth doesn't stop swords, he muttered. In the shadows near the pillars, Stannis stood rigid, watching as if weighing every word. He had not left. He had been waiting because Stannis always waited for the moment law could strike cleanly. Robert's gaze flicked to him. You got what you wanted, Robert said, voice bitter. Stannis' expression did not change. I got what the law demands, he said. Now we must finish it. Robert's jaw clenched. Finish, he repeated. You mean kill them? Stannis stepped forward slightly, the torchlight catching his face and making it look carved. Yes, he said simply. Tywin has raised banners. He will use the children as his justification. He will paint them as victims of your cruelty and my ambition. His eyes narrowed. He will not stop until one of them sits the throne, or until we are dead. Ned's jaw tightened. If we kill them, we hand him martyrs, he said. Stannis' gaze turned cold. Martyrs do not breed heirs, he replied. Robert's hands trembled. He turned away, staring up at the iron throne's blades. I can't, he whispered, and the whisper sounded like defeat. Ned stepped closer, voice low. Then hold to your decision, he said. But do not be blind. Guard them, separate them, make it impossible for Tywin to reach them. Stannis' voice cut in. Impossible does not exist, he said. Only delayed. Robert's breathing came heavy. He grabbed the hammer's haft and lifted it, not to swing, but to feel its weight. The weight was familiar. Simple. A hammer did not debate. It struck. What does the realm want from me? Robert demanded suddenly, voice rising, shaking with rage and grief. To be a hero? A butcher? A laughing drunk? He turned, eyes wild. They wanted me to kill a dragon, so I did. Now they want me to kill children because they're inconvenient. Stannis' gaze did not waver. They want you to be king, he said. Kings do what must be done. Robert's laugh cracked. And what if what must be done makes me a monster? He snarled. Stannis' eyes were flint. Then be a monster, he said. Better a monster than a corpse. Ned's voice rose sharp. Enough, he said. You speak of monsters as if they rule forever. They don't. They are feared, and then they are killed, and their deaths are celebrated. Stannis' gaze slid to Ned. Then you propose softness, he said. Ned's eyes hardened. I propose survival, he said. Survival that does not poison the realm so deeply it can never heal. Robert stared at them both. He felt pulled apart. Stannis like a hook in his ribs, Ned like a hand on his shoulder. Duty and mercy, law and honor, pride and fear. A distant shout echoed from somewhere in the keep. Guards calling, footsteps pounding. Another message arriving, perhaps. Another spark. Robert's eyes snapped to the doors, then back to the raven letter on the floor. He could almost see Tywin's face in the torchlight, calm, certain, already moving pieces. Robert's grip tightened on the hammer. His knuckles went white. I will not kill them, he said again. But the words sounded less like certainty now and more like a vow made in the face of a storm. Stannis' gaze narrowed. Then you must move them tonight, he said, before Tywin's men find another passage beneath your feet. Ned's voice was steady. We will, he said. We move them, we secure them, and we prepare for war. Robert stared up at the Iron Throne. The blades seemed to lean closer, hungry. War? Robert whispered, and the word tasted like the old days. Simple, violent, honest. Then his face twisted. All because I married a lion. In the shadows, Stannis' voice was cold. All because you ignored duty, he said. Robert's eyes burned. He turned his back on the throne and strode toward the doors, hammer in hand, as if walking into battle could drown the shame. Ned followed, silent, already planning ravens and wardships and alliances. Stannis followed too, rigid and relentless, law walking behind them like a blade. And somewhere deep in the keep, behind guarded doors, 3 children slept. One dreaming of crowns, one dreaming of safety, one dreaming of nothing at all, while the realm gathered steel around their names. Narration prompt 21. Sora prompt 21. Robert Baratheon leans over a map-littered table in a windowless chamber, his warhammer laid beside spilled wax seals, while Eddard Stark, Ser Barristan Selmy, Stannis Baratheon, Varys, and Peter Baelish stand close, torchlight turning their faces into hard plains as red ink marks roads out of King's Landing. The decision to move them was made in a room that smelled of smoke and old secrets, with stone walls thick enough to swallow screams. Robert stood over the table like a man staring down a battlefield he could not recognize. Roads were inked in red and black. The city gates were circled. The river was a dark ribbon leading out toward the sea. His warhammer lay near his elbow as if it were a witness to every word spoken. They leave tonight, Robert said, voice raw. Not tomorrow. Not after another tantrum. Tonight. Stannis' eyes did not blink. Good, he said. And where? Ned's gaze stayed on the map, steady, deliberate. Not all together, he said. If they travel as a single prize, they will be hunted as one. Pycelle's trembling voice tried to slip into the air and failed. He hovered near the door with his mouth half open, a useless old man frightened of his own chain. Varys' hands rested lightly together. The city has many mouths, he murmured. Even at night it speaks. If you move 3 royal children, the streets will taste it. We won't move 3 royal children, Robert snarled. We'll move 2 Lannister brats and 1 little monster who thinks he's a king. Stannis's jaw tightened at the word brats. "Call them what you like," he said. "They are claimants." Ned looked up sharply. "They will not be claimants when they are kept apart and stripped of power," he said. Littlefinger's smile was thin and entertained. "Stripping power is always messy," he said. "Men have this habit of thinking a name is worth more than a sword, even when the name is rotten." Robert's gaze cut toward him. "Then we rot it ourselves," Robert said. "We make the realm see it." Barristan's voice was measured. "Your Grace," he said, "the prince's protection is the hound. He will not yield Joffrey easily if he believes the boy in danger." Robert's mouth twisted. "Sandor Clegane protects whoever pays him," Robert said. "I pay him." Ned's gaze held Robert's. "And if Joffrey refuses?" he asked quietly. Robert's eyes flashed. "Then I force him," he said. The words came too quickly, too sharp, and for a moment Ned heard the edge of the monster Robert feared becoming. Stannis leaned forward slightly, the torchlight carving his face into something severe. "Send Joffrey to Dragonstone," he said. "Under my guard. He will not escape." Robert's nostrils flared. "You want him close," Robert said, voice thick with suspicion. "So you can solve the problem the way you like." Stannis's gaze turned colder. "So the realm survives," he said. Ned's voice cut in, calm but hard. "Dragonstone makes him a weapon," he said. "Every man who fears Stannis will call Joffrey a banner. Keep him near, where the crown can watch him." Littlefinger's eyes gleamed. "Near," he echoed. "Near is dangerous. A king's enemies are always nearest his bed." Varys's soft voice followed. "And yet," he said, "distance invites kidnapping. Tywin will not hesitate to send knives across roads if it puts a child in his hands." Robert's fingers drummed once on the table, then stopped. "Tommen goes by sea," he said. "To Old Town, to the Citadel. No wife, no heirs, no crown. Just books and chains." His voice roughened. "If he wants to be a good boy, he can learn to heal men instead of ruling them." Ned nodded once. "And Myrcella?" Robert's eyes flicked toward Ned. "Your north is far," Robert said, voice low. "Farther than Tywin's reach. Farther than most men's patience." Ned's jaw tightened, already feeling the weight of what it would mean to bring a lion cub into Winterfell. "She would be safe," Ned said carefully, "but the North will be named complicit in whatever follows." Stannis's lip curled faintly. "Safety bought with politics is still safety," he said. Littlefinger's smile widened. "And politics bought with a princess is always expensive," he murmured. Robert looked back to the map as if he could avoid looking at Ned. "The Vale," Robert said suddenly. "Send her to the Eyrie. Lisa Arryn will hide her behind her mountains and call it virtue." Varys's eyes softened with something like amusement. "Lady Lisa is protective," he agreed, "though protection can become a cage." Ned's gaze did not soften. "A cage is what we are building," he said. "Better a cage than a grave." Robert's jaw clenched. "And Joffrey," he said, voice thick. "Joffrey stays here, under guard. Under the faith if I can shove him into their hands without starting a riot." Stannis's eyes burned. "The faith will not hold him if Tywin buys the Septons," he said. "Then I'll buy them first," Robert growled. Littlefinger's chuckle was quiet. "A bidding war for sin," he said. "King's Landing will sing about it for years." Robert's gaze snapped up, furious. "I don't care what it sings," he said. "I care what it bleeds." Barristan laid a hand on the table, steadying the air with his presence. "Then we move with silence," he said. "No banners. No announced escorts. Disguises. Postern gate. A ship that looks like a merchant's." Varys inclined his head. "I can quiet certain tongues," he murmured. "For a price the tongues do not understand." Robert's fist tightened. "Do it," he said. Ned's gaze lingered on the red lines that marked roads out of the city. He could almost see the knives waiting along them. "Who rides with them?" he asked. Robert hesitated only a heartbeat. "Myrcella goes with a man who won't sell her," he said, looking at Ned now. She goes with you, your men. Ned felt the weight settle in his chest like stone. Then I'll take her, he said. Stannis's gaze sharpened. A flash of something that might have been contempt. Stark men guarding Lannister blood, he said quietly. The realm will choke on the irony. Robert's voice was low and harsh. The realm can choke, he said, so long as it lives. Narration prompt 22. Sora prompt 22. Joffrey Baratheon stands in his chamber with Sandor Clegane behind him, while Ser Barristan Selmy and armed men in Baratheon colors block the doorway. Robert Baratheon entering with a face like thunder as Joffrey's hand clutches a dagger handle on a table. Joffrey's chamber smelled of perfumed oil and anger. He had thrown a chair against the wall and watched it splinter, as if breaking might break the reality pressing in on him. The servants had fled. Only Sandor remained, heavy and silent, leaning against the stone with the patience of a dog that had been kicked too many times to bother flinching. When the knock came, it was not a servant's timid tap. It was a fist of authority, relentless. Joffrey lifted his chin and smiled as if he were welcoming guests to a feast. "Enter," he called. The door opened on steel. Ser Barristan Selmy stood in the doorway with 6 men behind him, all in stag colors. Their faces were hard. Their hands were on swords. Joffrey's smile tightened. "Ser Barristan," he said sweetly, "you look as if you've come to arrest me." Barristan's eyes were cold. "I have come to escort you," he said. "Escort," Joffrey repeated. "Where?" Barristan did not answer immediately. His gaze slid briefly to Sandor, measuring. Sandor's mouth twisted slightly, not quite a grin, not quite contempt. He did not move. Joffrey's eyes flicked to the dagger on the table. Small, decorative, more for show than killing, but sharp enough to cut. "You are leaving the Red Keep," Barristan said at last. "Tonight." Joffrey laughed, a high, brittle sound. "I am not leaving," he said. "This is my home." "It is the king's home," Barristan corrected. Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "The king is my father." Silence held for a heartbeat. Barristan's face did not change, but something in his eyes tightened, as if the words had scraped something raw. "Your father has commanded it," Barristan said. Joffrey's cheeks flushed. "And I command you to step aside." He snapped, the sweetness evaporating into rage. "I am the prince." Barristan's voice remained calm. "You are not king," he said. "You will obey." Joffrey's breath hitched, outrage rising like bile. He took a step toward the doorway, and Sandor's presence shifted behind him, subtle as a shadow lengthening. "You will not touch me," Joffrey hissed. "If you lay a hand on me, I will have you flayed." Barristan's gaze did not waver. "Threaten me again," he said, "and I will carry you out bound and gagged like any criminal." Joffrey stared at him, stunned that the old knight dared. Then Robert Baratheon entered. He filled the doorway with his bulk and his fury. His eyes were bloodshot. His face looked carved from exhaustion and rage, his beard untrimmed, his mouth set in a line that promised pain. Joffrey's voice caught. "Father!" Robert's gaze landed on him like a weight. For a heartbeat, Joffrey looked small under it. "You will go," Robert said. Joffrey's face twisted. "No," he spat. "You cannot." Robert stepped forward, and the air in the chamber seemed to shrink. "I can," Robert said, voice low. "I am king." Joffrey's hands curled into fists. "You humiliate me," he whispered, voice shaking. "In the hall, in the corridor. Now this, everyone will see." Robert's nostrils flared. "Everyone has seen enough of you," he growled. "Everyone has watched you grin at pain like it's a song. You will leave because I say so, and because you are safer out of sight than you are here with your mother's men crawling through my walls." At the word mother, Joffrey's eyes sharpened. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Why can't I see her?" Robert's jaw clenched, and for a moment it looked as if he might strike the boy again. Instead, he forced the words through clenched teeth. "Because she is not your shield," Robert said. Not anymore. Joffrey's breath came fast. His gaze darted to Sandor, seeking reassurance, seeking a blade. "Hound," Joffrey said, voice thin. "Tell them." Sandor's eyes moved to Robert. He stared a long moment, then spat to the side. "He's king," Sandor said. "You heard him." Joffrey's face went white with fury. "You're mine," he hissed. Sandor's mouth curled. "No one owns me," he said softly, and the softness was a threat. Joffrey's hand shot to the dagger. He grabbed it and lifted it, the blade shaking slightly in his grip. Barristan's men tensed. Robert's eyes narrowed. "You would draw steel on your king?" Robert asked quietly. Joffrey's breathing hitched. He looked from Robert to the guards to Barristan. For the first time, he understood in his bones that the room was not his, that the men who had always bowed might not bow today. His hand trembled harder. Then, slowly, his arm lowered, the dagger clattering onto the table. His eyes burned with hatred and something worse. Fear. "This is treason," Joffrey whispered. Robert stepped closer until he was close enough that Joffrey could smell wine and iron on him. Robert leaned in. "No," Robert said, voice rough. "This is me correcting my mistake." Joffrey flinched as if slapped by words. Robert straightened and spoke louder, for the guards and for the walls. "You will dress," he ordered, plainly. "No crown, no crimson, nothing that makes you a target. You will go with Ser Barristan's men, and you will not speak to anyone on the way. If you try to run, they will break your legs." Joffrey stared at him, lips trembling. "You wouldn't," he whispered. Robert's eyes were cold. "Try me," he said. Joffrey swallowed hard, the hatred in his face sharpening into something that looked disturbingly like resolve. He turned toward the wardrobe with stiff movements, shoulders squared too tightly for a boy. As he began to pull on plain clothes with shaking hands, Robert watched him, and Ned Stark's words echoed in his skull. "Bind them so tightly no man can use them." Robert wondered, with a sick twist, whether he was binding a boy or forging a bee.
Lil.
Narration prompt 23. Sora prompt 23. Myrcella Baratheon and Tommen Baratheon wear plain clothes and hoods as Eddard Stark guides them through a shadowed postern gate. Jory Castle and Stark men close around them. A small boat waiting in Blackwater Bay under a moonless sky while city watchmen turn their faces away at a quiet bribe. The postern gate opened like a mouth in the dark. Ned Stark hated the feel of it. Stone swallowing light, the air damp and cold, the sense that every shadow could hide a knife. He moved with the careful steadiness of a man who had walked battlefields and knew that the deadliest moments were often the quietest. Myrcella walked beside him with her hood pulled low. She clutched a small bundle to her chest. Nothing royal, nothing that marked her as a princess, only a doll wrapped in cloth. Her steps were small but determined, her breath soft. Tommen shuffled on the other side, hood slipping slightly. His hand was in Jory Castle's, fingers gripping hard. He had tried to be brave when they woke him, tried to swallow his tears, but the moment they passed out of the familiar halls, fear had finally found his throat. "Where are we going?" Tommen whispered for the third time. Ned bent slightly, keeping his voice low. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere quiet." Tommen's lip trembled. "Is Mother coming?" he whispered. Ned's chest tightened. "Not yet," he said carefully. Myrcella said nothing. She looked straight ahead, eyes wide and shining in the darkness. Ned saw with a sudden sharpness how young she was, how unfair it was to make her walk like a fugitive because grown men had broken vows in bedrooms. A pair of city watchmen stood near the gate's inner arch. Their torches were hooded, the light dim. They wore gold cloaks, but their eyes were wary, and their hands hovered near their belts as if coins mattered more than commands. Jory approached them first, quiet words exchanged too low for Myrcella and Tommen to hear. A small pouch moved from Jory's hand to the watchman's. The watchman's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Quickly," he murmured, stepping aside. His eyes slid over the hooded children and away again, pretending not to see. pretending not to know. Ned hated the necessity of it. But necessity did not care about honor. Outside the gate, the city smelled of river mud and night sweat. Narrow alleys led toward the water, and the sound of distant taverns drifted like ghosts. Ned kept the Stark men tight around the children. 5 in gray cloaks, silent as wolves, blades ready under wool. A small boat waited at a quiet stretch of Blackwater Bay, its hull dark, its oars held steady by 2 men who looked like fishermen until you saw the way they watched the shadows. A larger vessel waited farther out, a merchant cog with no banners, its lanterns dim. Myrcella hesitated at the water's edge. The bay was black, the surface barely moving, the smell sharp. She looked up at Ned, and for a moment her composure cracked. "Will Joffrey come?" she whispered. Ned's jaw tightened. "Not with you," he said. "You will be apart. That is safer." Myrcella swallowed hard. "Joffrey will be angry," she said softly. Ned did not lie. "Yes," he said. Tommen's voice trembled. "I don't want to go," he whispered. "I don't want to leave." Jory crouched beside him, voice gentle. "It'll be an adventure," Jory said quietly, forcing warmth into the words. "Sailboats and storms and—" Tommen shook his head, tears spilling. "I want father," he whispered. Ned's throat tightened. Robert, who had never been a father in the ways that mattered, was now the only name that steadied the boy. The irony tasted like ash. Ned guided them into the boat, hands steady. The fishermen pushed off, oars dipping silently. The city began to recede, the Red Keep's bulk rising over the skyline like a dark crown. Myrcella sat rigid, doll clutched to her chest, eyes fixed on the keep as if willing it to stay the same. Tommen curled in on himself, trembling, trying not to sob aloud. As they rowed toward the merchant cog, Ned felt the hair on his neck prickle. He scanned the shore, the rooftops, the boats drifting farther down the bay. A ripple of movement near the wharf, a figure stepping out of shadow. Another, cloaks darker than night. Not fishermen, not drunkards. "Row," Ned murmured, voice like stone. "Row hard." The oarsman's strokes quickened. The water hissed softly. A shout rose from the shore. Quiet, urgent, cut off as if someone had clapped a hand over a mouth. Then a glint of steel in torchlight. A crossbow lifted. Ned's hand shot out, yanking Myrcella down into the boat's belly. Jory pulled Tommen down with him. An arrow hissed through the air and thudded into the boat's side with a dull crack. The oarsmen swore under their breath and rowed harder. More bolts came, splashing into the water behind them. One struck the oar's edge, splintering wood. Stark men rose, shields lifted, bodies forming a wall over the children. Ned drew his sword, the familiar weight calming him, even as his heart hammered. On the shore, shadowed men ran along the wharf, trying to keep pace. One raised a horn. A soft thump sounded. The man stumbled, a dagger suddenly protruding from his throat. He fell without a sound. Another man turned, eyes wide, then dropped as if yanked by invisible hands. In the torch flicker, Ned saw it. A child's small shape in the shadows, quick and silent, slipping away. Varys's birds, Ned thought grimly. Watching, killing if necessary. The boat reached the merchant cog. Hands grabbed at them, hauling them aboard quickly. The sailors moved with rehearsed efficiency, ropes thrown, ladders clattering. Ned climbed after the children, sword still in hand. He glanced back toward shore. The shadowed attackers were retreating now, swallowed by alley darkness. The cog's sail rose, catching the night breeze. The boat began to turn away from King's Landing, the city's lights shrinking behind them. Myrcella lifted her head just enough to look back. Tears glimmered in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. Tommen buried his face in his hands. Ned stared at the receding keep, jaw clenched, and felt the full weight of what he had just done. He had stolen children from their mother. He had smuggled them out of a city like contraband. And it was only the beginning. Narration prompt 24. Sora prompt 24. Cersei Lannister, in a simple dark gown, slams her fists against a locked door in Maegor's holdfast, her hair half undone, while a single handmaid trembles near a table with ink and parchment, and a guard's shadow falls across the threshold. Cersei learned they were gone from the silence. The castle had always been loud, servants scurrying, guards clanking, courtiers whispering. Yet there was a particular kind of quiet that meant something had been removed. Like a tooth pulled, like a heartbeat stopped. She stood in Maegor's holdfast in a chamber that was meant to be secure, meant to be unassailable, meant to make a queen feel protected. Felt like a cage. The walls were thick. The windows were narrow. The door was barred from the outside. When she called for her children, no one answered. Her handmaid, a young girl with shaking hands, finally broke under Cersei's stare. "Your Grace," she whispered, eyes darting to the door as if afraid the stone itself might hear. They took them." Cersei's stomach dropped, cold and heavy. "Took them?" Cersei repeated, voice dangerously calm. "Who?" "The king's men," the girl said.
"Se Barristans."
And Lord Stark's men. Lord Stark. Ned Stark's name landed like a stone. Of course it would be Ned. Honor wrapped around cruelty like a ribbon. He would tell himself it was mercy even as he pulled a child from her mother's arms. Cersei's breath came sharp. She moved to the door and pounded on it with both fists. "Open," she snapped. Nothing. She pounded again, harder. "Open." A guard's voice came, muffled by wood. "The king's command, Your Grace." Cersei's fingers curled into claws. "Let me out," she hissed. "Let me see my children." Silence. Then guarded. "They are being moved for their safety." "My safety?" Cersei's laugh cracked. "Or his?" No answer. She pressed her forehead against the door. Teeth clenched so hard her jaw ached. For a heartbeat, she almost pleaded. Almost. Then she felt the old Tywin lesson rise. Never beg. Begging is blood on the floor. She stepped back and forced herself to breathe. "They will not keep them from me," she said softly, more to herself than to the trembling girl. The handmaid's eyes widened. "Your Grace, bring me parchment," Cersei said. "Ink, now." The girl rushed to the table, fumbling with the supplies. Cersei's mind moved fast, sharpening. Robert had removed her cubs. That meant he was afraid. Afraid of Tywin. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of what he might do if the cubs were within reach. She would use that fear. She sat and took the quill. Her hand was steady. That steadiness frightened the handmaid more than rage would have. She wrote quickly, the words tight and controlled. "Father, they have confined me. Jaime is taken. The king has declared the children illegitimate. He has moved them. Myrcella and Tommen gone by night, Joffrey kept under guard. He will try to break us. Do not let him." She paused, quill hovering, then added, colder, "If the children are harmed, there will be no peace. Not ever." She signed it with a simple C, as if her name might be too loud. She folded the parchment twice, pressing it flat with her palm. Now came the problem, getting it out. The door was guarded. Ravens would be watched. Servants were frightened, but fear could be shaped. Cersei looked at the handmaid. "What is your name?" she asked softly. The girl swallowed. "Marya, Your Grace." Cersei smiled faintly. "Marya," she said, gentle as poison. "You love your family." Marya's eyes widened. "Yes, Your Grace." "Where are they?" Cersei asked. Marya hesitated, then whispered, "In Flea Bottom. My mother. My little brothers." Cersei nodded, as if pleased. "Then you will help me," she said. "Because if you do, I will see they are fed for a year. If you do not..." She let the silence do the cutting. "Then when my father comes, and he will come, and he will ask who kept his daughter caged, I will say your name." Marya's face went pale, lips trembling. Cersei leaned closer. "You will take this," she whispered, sliding the folded parchment across the table. "You will hide it in your sleeve, in your hair, in your mouth if you must. You will walk out when the guards allow you to fetch water or linen. You will find a Lannister man, not a gold cloak, not a Baratheon fool, a Lannister. Maria's hands shook as she took the parchment, as if it burned. And if they search you? Maria whispered. Cersei's eyes were cold. Then you swallow it, she said, and you pray your stomach can keep Tywin's message long enough for him to retrieve it. Maria made a small choking sound. Cersei rose, paced slow now, composed. She looked at the door again, at the shadow beneath it. Robert thought he had cut her off. He had not. He had only forced her to use sharper tools. Narration prompt 25. Sora prompt 25. Varys moves through a narrow passage beneath the Red Keep with two small children in ragged clothes at his side, their eyes wide, while he holds a freshly seized parchment and his expression is soft and terrible in torchlight. The message did not make it past the second corridor. Maria slipped out with a basket of linens, head bowed, eyes lowered, trying to make herself small. The guards at Maegor's holdfast barely glanced at her. Servants were invisible until they weren't. She walked with the careful speed of a frightened girl, the folded parchment hidden beneath the cuff of her sleeve where it pressed against her skin like a heartbeat. She made it halfway down the stairs before a small voice behind her whispered, "Drop it." Maria froze. She turned sharply and saw nothing but shadow and stone. Her breath came fast. "Drop it." The voice whispered again, thin, childlike. Her hands shook. "Who?" she began. A small figure stepped into the edge of torchlight. A boy no older than 8, filthy, eyes too sharp. Beside him, a younger girl with tangled hair watched with hungry curiosity. Maria's throat tightened. "Please," she whispered, and she did not know whether she meant "please don't hurt me" or "please let me finish what the queen asked." The boy lifted a small knife, more a shard than a weapon. "Drop it," he said again. Maria's fingers trembled. She pulled the parchment free, and for a heartbeat she considered swallowing it. But fear clenched her stomach. She let it fall. The boy snatched it with quick hands and vanished into the dark like a rat. Maria stood frozen, basket slipping from her fingers, linen spilling. Then she bolted, stumbling back toward Maegor's holdfast, sobbing. In the tunnels beneath the keep, Varys unfolded the parchment with delicate hands. Torchlight flickered over the words, over Cersei's tight script, over the sharpness in every line. His face was soft as he read. Softness could be a mask. Softness could be the most dangerous expression of all. When he finished, he folded the parchment neatly and slipped it into his sleeve. The boy and girl watched him with wide eyes. "Did I do good?" the boy asked, voice eager. Varys' smile was gentle. "You did wonderfully," he said. He reached into a pouch and produced 2 small sweet cakes. The children grabbed them like starving animals. "Will he kill her?" the girl asked around a mouthful, eyes darting. Varys' gaze drifted into the tunnel's darkness, as if he could see the future hiding there. "Kings kill many things," he murmured. "Sometimes they do not even notice what they have killed until years later." He turned and began to walk, the children trailing after him, chewing noisily. His footsteps were soft, measured, as if the stone itself welcomed him. The question was not whether Cersei had tried to send a message. Of course she had. The question was who would benefit from letting it reach Tywin, and who would benefit from keeping it in Varys' hand instead. As he moved through the passage, he pictured Robert Baratheon's rage and Stannis Baratheon's law and Eddard Stark's stubborn honor. He pictured Tywin Lannister's calm violence. A message like this could be a match. A match could light a war or be extinguished at precisely the right moment. Varys' smile remained gentle as he climbed the steps toward the surface. Above, the keep murmured with growing tension. Guards whispered. Servants watched each other. The city beyond grew restless, feeling the invisible tightening of a noose. Varys emerged into a corridor and paused, listening. He could hear, faintly, a man's laugh, Peter Baelish somewhere nearby, amused by the world breaking. Varys' eyes narrowed slightly, the gentleness thinning into something sharper. He would decide soon whether to hand Robert the intercepted parchment, or whether to let Robert remain blind to the Queen's reach for her father. Either way, someone would bleed for it. Narration prompt 26. Sora prompt 26. Stannis Baratheon stands in the small council chamber with Davos Seaworth behind him, his finger pressed to a map of the Riverlands, while Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark listen with tense faces and Ser Barristan Selmy holds a helmet under his arm, the air heavy with the sound of distant city murmurs. By dawn, the city was already changing. You could feel it in the way guards shifted their spears at the gates, in the way merchants lingered too long over their sacks of grain, in the way tavern laughter sounded sharper, more brittle. A kingdom did not need drums to know it was marching toward war. In the council chamber, Stannis spoke like a man reading judgment. Tywin has begun his assault by proxy, he said, finger pressed to the Riverlands on the map. Gregor Clegane raids without banners so Tywin can deny it. Denial is worthless. The damage is done. Robert's jaw worked. Then we answer, he said. Stannis' eyes lifted, cold. We answer with force, he said. We send a royal host to burn the raiders and hang their captains. We send a message that the crown's justice cannot be mocked. Ned's voice was quiet. Justice, he echoed. Not vengeance. Stannis' gaze flicked to him. They are the same to the dead, he said. Davos shifted behind Stannis, his weathered face uneasy. He did not speak. He rarely did in rooms like this unless Stannis asked, and Stannis almost never asked. Robert leaned forward, hands on the table. Who do we send? He demanded. Ned's gaze held steady. Beric Dondarrion, he said. A lord of good repute, loyal. Send him with a group swift enough to catch Gregor's men. Give him the king's authority. Robert's eyes narrowed. He remembered Beric, young, eager, brave. Brave men died easily in wars sparked by pride. Send him, Robert said at last. Stannis' mouth tightened. Send him, Stannis agreed. And send orders to seize all Lannister men in the city. Every guard in red. Every merchant tied to Casterly Rock. Every.
No, Robert snapped.
Stannis' eyes sharpened. No, he repeated, voice edged. Robert's chest rose and fell. If I start rounding up Lannister men in the streets, I turn King's Landing into a slaughterhouse, he said. Tywin will answer by killing our men in the Westerlands. The city will riot. It'll be chaos. Stannis leaned forward. Chaos is already here, he said coldly. The only question is whether you control it. Ned's gaze moved between them. We must be careful, he said. If you seize every Lannister, you make enemies of those who fear arbitrary arrest. You give Tywin justification. Stannis' eyes burned. Tywin needs no justification, he said. He will burn regardless. Better to cripple his reach while we can. Barristan spoke then, voice measured. We can remove the Queen's loyal men from key posts, he said. Quietly, without riots. Replace gate commanders. Replace watch captains. Make it harder for Tywin to strike within the city. Robert nodded sharply. Do it, he said. Stannis' gaze remained hard. And the Queen? He asked. Robert's jaw clenched. She stays confined, he said. And the Kingslayer? Stannis pressed. Alive, Robert said. Stannis' mouth tightened. Alive claimants, he said. Alive traitors. Alive problems. Robert's eyes flashed. Enough, he growled. You will not push me into child murder by calling it duty. Stannis' expression did not soften. Then you will be pushed by war, he said. War does not care what you prefer. Ned leaned closer to Robert, voice low. We must also speak to Renly, he said. The Stormlands will follow a Baratheon, but only if they believe the Baratheons are united. Robert's laugh was bitter. Renly, he muttered. He'll smell danger and run to Highgarden like a boy hiding behind skirts. Stannis' eyes narrowed. Renly's loyalty is as thin as his courage, he said. Davos shifted again, discomfort clear now. Begging pardon, he said quietly, and everyone turned because Davos rarely spoke without need. But men follow more than law. They follow hope. They follow charm. Lord Renly has charm. Stannis' gaze turned icy. Charm does not win wars, he said. Davos met his eyes, steady. It can win men, he said. Silence held. Robert stared at Davos as if seeing him properly for the first time. A smuggler with a blunt honesty the court lacked. Robert exhaled sharply. Send word to Renly, he said. Tell him to stay. Tell him I need my brother's banners. Stannis' jaw tightened. He will not come, he said. Then I'll drag him back by his ear. Robert snarled, though the threat lacked heat. He knew, deep down, that Renly's instinct for survival was sharper than Robert's need for unity. Barristan stepped forward. Your Grace, he said. Beric Dondarrion will need men. Robert's gaze snapped to the map again. Seeing villages burning, seeing bodies hanging, seeing the realm bleeding at the edges. Give him 100, Robert said, and send Thuras of Myr with him. If the gods still watch this realm, perhaps they'll watch him. Stannis' voice was cold. The gods do not save kings from their choices, he said. Robert's eyes burned. No, he said, they don't. Outside the chamber, the city's murmur rose, louder now, like a restless beast sensing the scent of blood. Narration prompt 27. Sora prompt 27. Tywin Lannister stands on a stone balcony of Casterly Rock with Kevan Lannister and Ser Gregor Clegane below in the courtyard. Tywin's hand resting on a letter while his eyes remain calm and merciless. Red cloaks and armored riders gathering like a storm at his feet. Tywin Lannister did not rage when the news came that 2 of the children were gone. He read the report in silence. Myrcella and Tommen moved by night, destination uncertain. Joffrey held close, Cersei confined, Jaime captured still. His face remained calm, as if he were studying the yield of a harvest rather than the abduction of his blood. Kevan watched him carefully. He's scattering them, Kevan said. Tywin folded the letter with precise fingers. Yes, he said. He believes separation makes them safe. Kevan's brow furrowed. It makes them harder to retrieve. Tywin's gaze drifted out over the courtyards below, where red cloaks moved like blood through stone. Horses stamped, steel clinked. Men spoke in low, urgent voices. The rock, usually a place of heavy stillness, now hummed with preparation. It makes them harder to retrieve, Tywin agreed, and it makes Robert think he has done something clever. Kevan's mouth tightened. What now? Tywin's eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but with focus. Now we remind the realm, he said, that Robert Baratheon does not decide what is true simply because he says it. Kevan hesitated. The Queen's confession. Tywin's gaze cut him off. Confessions can be forced, Tywin said softly. Confessions can be forged. Confessions can be made by frightened women in cages who will say anything to save their children. Kevan swallowed. He made it public. Tywin's mouth twitched. Public lies are still lies, he said. Below, Ser Gregor Clegane waited like a tower of muscle and menace, helm tucked beneath one arm. His horse shifted under him as if even the beast feared being too still. Tywin descended the steps to the courtyard, his cloak heavy. Men parted for him instinctively. Gregor's gaze remained fixed, expression unreadable behind brute calm. Ser Gregor, Tywin said. Gregor dipped his head a fraction. My lord, the king has sent men against you, Tywin said. A royal force. They will call you outlaw. They will try to make you an example. Gregor's mouth stretched into something that might have been a smile if it had not been so empty. Let them come, he rumbled. Tywin's voice remained calm. Do not allow yourself to be taken, he said. Do not allow yourself to be seen in a way that gives them proof they can parade. Gregor's eyes narrowed. You want me to run? Tywin's gaze was ice. I want you to win, he said. Winning is not always killing. Sometimes winning is surviving long enough to kill later. Gregor's jaw worked, but he nodded once, slow. Tywin turned to Kevan. Send word to the bannermen, he said. Quiet speed. No grand summons. Men will gather as if for a hunt. Kevin nodded. And the message to the realm? Tywin's eyes lifted, pale and steady. We will mourn, he said. We will mourn the innocent children stolen and imprisoned by a king under the influence of bitter brothers and northern wolves. His voice did not change. We will speak of justice. We will speak of protection. We will speak of a realm threatened by a king who has lost his mind. Kevin's mouth tightened. And if Robert executes Jaime? Tywin's gaze remained calm. Then Jaime dies, he said, and Robert's reign becomes a reign of kinslaying and slaughter. He paused, then added quieter, and I will teach the realm what it costs. Kevin studied his brother, searching for something. Grief, perhaps, or anger. He found only steel. And Cersei? Kevin asked. Tywin's eyes hardened a fraction. My daughter is a lion, he said. Lions do not die in cages. He turned back toward the gathered riders. Prepare men for King's Landing, Tywin said. Not as an army, not yet, as a knife. Gregor's head tilted. A knife, he echoed, slow. Tywin looked at him. Yes, he said, a knife that slips into the city while the king's eyes are on the Riverlands. Gregor's smile returned, ugly and eager. Tywin watched his men gather, watched the rock's stillness transform into motion, and felt no fear, only certainty. Robert Baratheon had declared war with words. Tywin Lannister would answer with reality. Narration prompt 28. Sora prompt 28. Beric Dondarrion rides through a smoke-choked village in the Riverlands with thuras of mere and armed men. His face hardened by firelight as charred bodies hang from a tree and a weeping woman clutches a child, while a distant hoofbeat echoes like approaching doom. Beric Dondarrion rode into ash. The village had once been a cluster of thatch roofs and muddy lanes, the kind of place that existed only to be forgotten by lords who preferred castles to dirt. Now it was a smear of blackened wood and dead smoke. The air tasted like burned grain and old screams. A woman sat in the mud clutching a child with hair singed and eyes too wide. She did not look up when Beric approached. Her gaze had gone somewhere else, somewhere far beyond grief. Thuras of Myr rode beside Beric, red priest robes stained with road grime, a flask of wine hanging at his belt. He stared at the hanging bodies with a frown that looked almost reverent, as if he expected the dead to speak if he listened long enough. Beric's men moved carefully, swords drawn, boots sinking into mud mixed with soot. They were young, mostly. They looked at the bodies and tried not to show how their stomachs turned. Beric dismounted, face tight. He approached the tree. 3 bodies hung. 2 men, 1 woman. The woman's feet were bare, toes curled. A crude lion had been carved into the trunk below them, smeared dark with sap and blood. Beric's jaw clenched. Gregor, he murmured. A soldier near him swallowed. My lord, he said quietly. We should turn back. There is always something. Beric cut in, voice hard. If we turn back, we tell the realm the king's justice is a story told in halls while small folk burn. Thuras swung down from his horse and stepped close to the hanging bodies. He stared up at them, eyes narrowed. They died afraid, he said softly, as if tasting the words. Beric's gaze snapped to him. And you're drinking, Beric said, sharp. Thuras lifted his flask slightly, shrugging. The dead don't mind, he said. The living do. Beric's hand clenched on his sword hilt. He forced himself to breathe, to focus. We track them, he said. We find the raiders. We take their heads back to King's Landing. One of the younger men, pale-faced, nodded quickly. Aye, my lord. A distant sound drifted through the smoke. Hoofbeats, faint at first, then clearer. Beric stiffened. His men shifted, raising shields. Thuras's hand went to his own sword, eyes sharpening. Riders, someone whispered. Beric's gaze swept the road. Through the haze, figures began to appear, dark shapes moving fast, the clink of armor like teeth. Beric drew his sword in one smooth motion. Form, he ordered. His men snapped into position, a line, shields up. The woman in the mud clutched her child tighter, rocking silently, as if the world were nothing but fire returning. The riders came closer, and torchlight glimmered on helms.
No banners, no calves.
But Beric saw the red beneath their mail, the faint suggestion of a lion pin, and his blood went cold. They were too many. Beric's throat tightened, but he raised his sword anyway, voice carrying through smoke. "In the name of King Robert Baratheon," he shouted, "I command you to throw down your arms," and a bolt hissed from the riders and struck one of Beric's men in the throat. The man dropped with a choking sound, blood spraying dark. The raiders charged.
Steel met steel.
Horses screamed. Men shouted. Smoke swirled around them, turning the fight into a nightmare of half-seen shapes and flashing blades. Beric fought hard, sword cutting, body moving with practiced skill. He saw a rider fall. He saw another slam into his line, horse crushing a man under hoof. Thuras swung his sword with brutal strength, laughing once as if battle were a tavern brawl. His robe flashed red in the firelight. Beric's breath came hard. He realized, with sick clarity, that this was not a skirmish. This was a message. Gregor Clegane was daring the crown to bleed. Somewhere in the chaos, Beric's horse reared, screaming, and Beric stumbled back. A massive rider emerged from the smoke, larger than the rest, helm shaped like a snarling beast. Beric's stomach dropped. The mountain, he thought. The raider's sword swung, heavy as an executioner's axe. Beric raised his blade to meet it, and the world became nothing but steel and impact and the realization that King's words were poor armor against a lion's brutality. Narration prompt 29. Sora prompt 29. Renly Baratheon stands in a gilded corridor of the Red Keep with Ser Loras Tyrell at his side. Renly's green and gold clothes too bright for the tension in his eyes, while Littlefinger smiles nearby and Renly's hand tightens around a ring as whispers crawl through the halls. Renly Baratheon smiled as the castle cracked. It was not a cruel smile. Renly rarely bothered with cruelty when charm would do. But it was the smile of a man who saw a storm coming and had already chosen the fastest horse. He stood in a corridor bright with gilt and torchlight, dressed too finely for a castle that had begun to smell like war. His fingers played with a ring idly, but his eyes were sharp, tracking servants and guards, and the way the air itself felt heavier. Ser Loras Tyrell stood close at his side, handsome as a song, jaw tight. His hand rested near his sword as if he expected to draw it in a hallway full of courtiers. "They've moved the children," Renly murmured, voice light as gossip. Loras's eyes narrowed. "So I heard," he said. Renly's gaze slid toward a passing group of gold cloaks. "Robert is panicking," he said softly. "He's never been good at fear. It makes him dramatic." Loras's mouth tightened. "Stannis is enjoying this," he said, voice edged. Renly's smile flickered. "Stannis enjoys nothing," he replied. "He simply endures until he can punish." Footsteps approached. Peter Baelish appeared as if conjured, smile bright, eyes gleaming with amusement. "My Lord Renly," Littlefinger purred. "You look radiant, as always." Renly's smile widened, effortless. "Peter," he said warmly, "you look as if you've just been told a particularly delightful secret." Littlefinger's eyes sparkled. "Oh, I've been told many," he said. "It's a generous day." Renly's gaze narrowed slightly. "And what do you think of all this?" he asked, as if asking about a play he might attend. Littlefinger's smile turned sharper. "I think the realm is about to learn what happens when lions and stags decide they cannot share the same forest," he said. "And I think clever men will make fortunes from the mess." Renly laughed softly. "Always the pragmatist." Littlefinger leaned in, voice dropping. "Pragmatism is survival," he said. "Some men survive by being loved. Some survive by being feared. Some survive by being elsewhere when the knives come out." Renly's smile held, but his eyes tightened. He glanced toward the end of the corridor where guards stood heavier than usual, where whispers skittered like insects. "Elsewhere," Renly echoed. Loras's gaze sharpened. "Don't," he murmured, low enough that only Renly could hear. Renly's fingers tightened around the ring. Robert has declared Stannis heir, Renly said quietly, the words tasting sour. Can you imagine? Stannis on the Iron Throne. He shuddered theatrically. The realm would die of boredom in a fortnight. Loras's eyes burned. Stannis will not be kind, he said. Renly's smile thinned. Kindness is not what I fear, he said. I fear being next. Littlefinger's eyes gleamed. Next, he repeated, voice soft. A dangerous word in a family. Renly's gaze flicked to him, sharp. You enjoy this, Renly said. Littlefinger's smile was almost innocent. I enjoy watching men reveal who they are when the masks crack, he said. Renly's laugh was soft, but there was no humor in it now. Robert is my brother, he said, as if reminding himself. But Robert has always been easily influenced. Ned will pull him toward honor. Stannis will pull him toward law. His voice turned quieter. And law has a way of deciding inconvenient relatives are liabilities. Loras stepped closer. Come with me, he said simply. Renly looked at him, and for a moment the brightness in him softened into something real. Then he glanced back toward the heart of the keep where Robert and Stannis and Ned were pulling the realm apart with decisions. If I stay, Renly murmured, I become a piece on their board. Littlefinger's eyes glittered. And if you leave, he said, you become a board of your own. Renly's smile returned, bright and brittle. He turned to Loras. We go to High Garden, he said quietly. Tonight. Before Stannis decides to secure me. Loras's jaw tightened. My father will. Your father will do what fathers do, Renly said, voice light again. He'll count banners and coin and decide where the wind blows. He leaned closer to Loras, whispering, and if the wind blows toward war, I would rather be holding the sail than drowning beneath it. Loras nodded once, sharp, determination flashing. Renly's gaze flicked once more down the corridor, toward the rooms where his brother raged and his other brother judged. He smiled as if nothing were wrong, as if he were simply going to a feast. And then he turned, already leaving the red keep behind in his mind, while the castle's whispers grew louder and the realm's knives grew sharper. Narration prompt 30. Sora prompt 30. Eddard Stark sits at a desk lit by a single candle. His gray cloak hung over a chair. Raven scrolls spread before him as he writes orders with a steady hand. While outside the Window King's landing glows restless and a Baratheon guard stands watch in silence. Ned wrote until his fingers cramped. He wrote orders to Riverrun, warning Lord Hoster Tully of raids and urging restraint until the Crown's justice could be seen. He wrote to the Eyrie, asking Lady Lisa Arryn to accept Myrcella under her protection, phrasing it as a request and a command braided together. He wrote to Old Town, to the Citadel, preparing them for Tommen's arrival under guard and secrecy. He wrote to Winterfell last, his hand hesitating for the briefest moment over the parchment as if the ink might betray him. Catelyn, he wrote, because he could not begin with my love, not with ravens that could be opened, not with a realm full of ears. He told her enough to make her understand the danger without giving the words that could damn them all. He told her to keep the children close. He told her to trust no southern messenger without proof. He told her that the king had broken his own life open and the pieces were now falling across the kingdom. He set the quill down and rubbed his eyes. The candle guttered slightly, the flame trembling as if tired too. Outside the window, King's Landing glowed with uneasy light. Torches at the gates, lanterns in the streets, the faint roar of taverns where men drank harder because they could taste fear in the air. Ned could hear distant shouting, the restless pulse of a city that did not understand its own hunger yet. A Baratheon guard stood outside his door, silent, a reminder that even Ned Stark was now watched in this castle of shifting loyalties. He leaned back and closed his eyes briefly. In the quiet behind his eyelids, he saw a child's face. Dark hair, solemn eyes, standing in Winterfell's snow with a name that could shatter kingdoms if spoken aloud. Ned felt the old ache tighten in his chest. Secrets, he thought. Always secrets. A soft knock came. "Enter," Ned said. The door opened, and Robert Baratheon stepped inside without ceremony. He looked even more exhausted than before, his eyes ringed with shadows, his shoulders heavy. He did not carry his hammer, but Ned could feel it in him anyway. The desire to solve everything with one brutal swing. "You sent them," Robert said, not asking.
Ned nodded.
"They are on the water," he said. "If the winds hold, they will be beyond reach before dawn." Robert's jaw tightened. "Good," he muttered. Then his mouth twisted. "Or maybe not. I don't know anymore." Ned studied him. "You did what you believed would save the realm," he said. Robert's laugh was bitter. "Save the realm," he echoed. "I couldn't even save my own bed." Ned's expression tightened. "This is not about your pride," he said, voice firm. Robert's eyes flashed. "Everything is about pride." He snarled, then softened slightly, as if the anger had burned out, leaving only ash. He stepped closer, gaze drifting to the ravens on the desk. "You write like you're stitching a wound," he said quietly. Ned's jaw clenched. "I'm trying," he replied. Robert stared at the parchment for a moment, then looked up at Ned. "Stannis wants blood," he said, voice rough. "He says I'm weak. He says I'm endangering the realm by sparing them." Ned's gaze held steady. "Stannis sees law," he said, "not people." Robert's lips curled. "And you see people," he said, voice edged. "Sometimes I think that's your weakness, Ned." Ned did not flinch. "If seeing people is weakness," he said, "then the realm needs more of it." Robert's breathing came heavy. He rubbed a hand over his face, dragging it down like he could wipe away exhaustion. "Renly's gone," he said suddenly. Ned's eyes sharpened. "Gone." Robert nodded, anger flickering. "Slipped out like a rat," he muttered. "Highgarden, no doubt. He thinks he can hide behind flowers." Ned's jaw tightened. "That fractures the Stormlands," he said. "It fractures me," Robert snapped, then looked away, jaw working. Always running, always smiling. He never understood what it cost to be king. Ned's voice was quiet. "Perhaps he understands too well," he said. "Perhaps he simply refuses to pay the price." Robert stared at the candle flame. "Tywin will come," he said. "Sooner than we want."
Ned nodded.
"Yes," he said. Robert's gaze lifted, eyes bloodshot. "And if he gets one of them back," Robert whispered. "If he gets Joffrey, if he gets Cersei, he'll crown the boy, won't he?" Ned's voice was steady. "He will try," he said. Robert's hand curled into a fist. "Then I should have killed them," he muttered, and the words tasted like regret and temptation. Ned stepped forward, voice hardening. "No," he said. "You should not. If you do that, you become what Tywin claims you are, a mad king, ruled by rage." Robert flinched, as if the words struck. Ned held his gaze. "You asked me to help you not become a monster," he said. "Then listen to me now." Robert's breathing came harsh. For a long moment, he looked as if he might break something. Desk, candle, himself. Then his shoulders sagged slightly. "Help me," Robert said again, the words quieter this time. Not a command. A confession. Ned's chest tightened. "I will," he said. Robert nodded once. Abrupt. "Then sleep," he muttered, glancing at the stacks of ravens. "We'll need you alive when the knives come." He turned to leave, then paused at the door, his broad silhouette framed by torchlight. He did not look back when he spoke, as if looking at Ned might make the words too real. "If I die," Robert said hoarsely, "don't let Stannis kill them out of spite." Ned's throat tightened. "I won't," he said. Robert lingered a heartbeat, then left, the door closing softly behind him. Ned stared at the candle flame until it steadied. Then he returned to his parchments and wrote one more line, the ink dark and certain. "Hold fast." Outside, King's Landing murmured like a beast that had not yet decided whether to sleep or bite.